When we got our marriage certificate, Jianan told me he didn't know how to love, so for 5 years of marriage, he gave me all his passion and desire. It was an arranged marriage between families. I knew I shouldn't be greedy, and thought this would be enough, until our anniversary night. I broke his bedroom rule for the first time, secretly removing the blindfold, yet I accidentally saw the name tattooed on the dimple of his back. That was the moment I realized, Jianan wasn't incapable of love. He just hid it secretly, reserving it all for my younger sister. We had a fierce argument, wishing each other dead in that moment. Little did I know, those words would prove prophetic. Both of them perished in a car crash over the cliff. Before dying, Jianan, his face covered in blood, looked at me and pleaded, "Ruotang, if there's a next life, let's not be husband and wife anymore, okay?" I stared at him, laughing miserably like a madwoman. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Jianan kneeling upright on the ground. "Uncle and aunt, I can't marry Ruotang. The one I love is Jiang Ying." I was taken aback, but I quickly let it go, as it happened that I didn't want to choose him this time either. 1. Are you really sure you want to marry a Yu? Mother Lu seemed somewhat reluctant, but I calmly exchanged the marriage certificate with her. After confirming the name on it was Lu Jiayu, I smiled gently. "It's confirmed, Auntie," Mother Lu earnestly advised once more. "Fortune tellers all say Ayu won't live past 30, you, Ruotang. Even if Jianan disagrees with the arranged marriage, you don't have to limit your choice of husband to just the Lu family." In his previous life, Lu Jiayu did indeed die at the age of 30. At that time, his mother fainted from crying, and his father aged significantly overnight. Everyone mourned his untimely passing. He was remarkable, becoming the head of the Lu family at such a young age. Beneath his frail body lay the most resolute heart. Before his death, I had intended to see him one last time, yet from his lips came the words, "I like Jiang Ruotang. Whatever I've done, she doesn't need to know. I only wish for her happiness." He said not all love needs to be spoken aloud, not all love demands reciprocation, so year after year, apart from his assistant, no one knew, his love was buried too deep, so deep that I never noticed even a hint of it. Until his final moment when he left this world with endless regrets. So, even if it's just for this I also want to help him, at least not let him die with regrets. After a long while, I raised a smile and gently patted the back of her hand, comforting her. "Auntie, Lu Jiayu will live a long life, too." After Lu's mother left, my own mother came to ask me, "Are you really not just acting out of spite towards Jianan?" She knew how much I liked Jianan, childhood sweethearts. From the moment my first love blossomed, no other boy could compare in my eyes. I thought he felt the same, but I never imagined it had always been my unrequited love all along. In my past life, when Jianan and I got our marriage certificate, he told me, "I've lived surrounded by schemes since childhood. I don't understand love, nor do I know how to love, but whatever I can give, I'll give to you." Married for 5 years, we were famously known in our circle as the perfect match. A loving couple. So to maintain this marriage, I was willing to teach Jianan how to love me, and I could indulge his occasional willfulness, even his preferences in bed, I could tolerate. In our past life, Jianan would always hand me a blindfold or use a tie to cover my eyes before bed, saying, "Tang's eyes are too beautiful. I'm afraid I might lose control and hurt you." Every time, I'd blush so hard the tips of my ears turned red. Later, once or twice, he forgot to cover my eyes, overjoyed. I wanted to see his impassioned expression, but he just coaxed me to change positions, then tenderly kissed my back inch by inch as if to appease me. We almost never faced each other, and I simply assumed it was Jianan's habit, until the 5th anniversary, the first time I secretly removed my blindfold, I accidentally discovered the name tattooed in the dimple of his back. Humiliation and betrayal washed over me simultaneously. At that moment, I felt as if I'd plunged into an ice cellar. I went berserk, smashing everything in the bedroom, grabbing an ashtray and hurling it at Jianan. I hurled every vile insult imaginable, wishing him dead with every fiber of my being, cursing him to the deepest pits of hell. Yet given another chance, I found myself wanting nothing more than to stay far away from him. Think carefully, Jianan indeed treated me very well, except that he didn't love me. 3. The engagement banquet is scheduled for next month, Mrs. Lu said these matters would be handled by the Lu family, and I just needed to wait peacefully. She gave me the opportunity to back out at any time. I smiled helplessly and replied, "This isn't fair to Lu Jiayu, he's just sick." I messaged the Research Institute's assistant to prepare the lab equipment for me. In my previous life, after Lu Jiayu's heart transplant, I locked myself in the lab for a while researching antibacterial drugs. By the time the drugs were ready for production, he had already passed away from infection. I hope we can make it in time this time. Suddenly, Lu Jianan sent me a message. Come to the G Club, I need to discuss something with you. I refused directly. The first thing Lu Jianan did after being reborn was to come to my house to cancel our arranged marriage and confess his love to my adopted sister Jiangying. To make Jiangying happy, he set off fireworks all night long. The topic about them remained at the top of the trending list, with everyone praising them as a perfect match. Paparazzi even captured a video of them strolling by the seaside. Jiangying seemed tired from walking and coquettishly asked Lu Jianan to carry her. I initially thought he would refuse, but he didn't. With a doting smile, he knelt on one knee, gently massaged her ankles first, and then carried her effortlessly, his movements fluid and tender. A netizen commented, "Young Master Lu is truly head over heels for Jiangying." During this time, he stayed by Jiangying's side, dutifully trying to please her and pampering her like a little princess. He was making every effort to make up for the regrets of his past life, wanting to live a different kind of life. I don't object, as long as it doesn't involve me, but in the end, I still came to the G Club, though not because of Lu Jianan. I want to meet Lu Jiayu, and his assistant called me back. Miss Jiang, President Lu is discussing business at Jui. If it's urgent, you can come directly. I frowned subconsciously and couldn't help but tease. Still drinking while sick? Is he afraid death won't come fast enough? The assistant on the other end immediately went silent. After a long silence, only a faint cough could be heard. In the end, the assistant hastily left a private room number before hanging up the phone. Surprisingly, Lu Jianan seemed certain I would come, having sent someone to watch for me here early on. The moment I showed my face, 2 bodyguards at the entrance forcibly brought me to Lu Jianan's private room. After pushing the door open, he immediately pressed hard on my shoulders, forcing me to kneel on the ground, the coldness seeping from the floor into my knees. A sense of humiliation washed over me once again. I clenched my fists and stared at the man before me. Lu Jianan, are you out of your mind? The private room was dimly lit. Lu Jianan bit a cigarette from the pack, lit it, took a drag, and exhaled a wisp of white smoke. I didn't want it to come to this either. If you refuse to cooperate and won't call off the engagement, don't blame me for playing dirty. My mind instantly went blank. Lu Jianan and I had clearly cancelled our wedding long ago. Could it be that he still doesn't know? I instinctively struggled a bit, opening my mouth to explain. Lu Jianan had already walked up to me, holding a glass of wine and pinching my chin. Ruotang, don't blame me. I just wanted to live the life I desired for once. As long as you're tainted, they won't force me to marry you. I stared fixedly at Lu Jianan, my eyes brimming with boundless sorrow. My heart ached so badly it felt like it was convulsing. The bond of childhood sweethearts. 5 years of marriage, truly trampled into the dirt. So you're going to drug me and send me to someone else's bed? For a moment, Lu Jianan seemed to be in a daze, his thin lips pressed tightly together, his movements pausing for just 2 seconds. In the end, he forcibly poured the wine into my mouth. The Lu family has been busy preparing for our engagement banquet these past 2 days. I truly can't wait any longer. I found you a suitable young master from a matching family. He will take responsibility for you and marry you. Lu Jianan, you're crazy, you've truly gone mad. I struggled desperately to break free from his grip, but there were still 2 bodyguards behind me. Their strength was overwhelming, making resistance impossible. The liquor surged violently down my throat. The intense irritation sent me into uncontrollable coughing. My face flushed crimson as spilled wine trickled down my chin, soaking the shirt on my chest, clinging tightly to my skin. Ruotang, be good. His voice was soft as he reached to wipe the wine stain from the corner of my mouth. The bodyguard had already released me by this point. I was panting heavily, still looking somewhat disheveled, my hands weakly braced against the floor as tears welled up in my eyes from the physical strain. My red lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. Lu Jianan, I'm not going to marry you, nor will I ever marry you. He smiled contemptuously upon hearing this. Are you really sure? Ruotang, I know you too well. I know how much you like me, so I have no choice but to do this. He was so confident, so certain. Suddenly, Jiangying appeared at the door of the private room, clutching her skirt tightly, her gaze fixed directly on me. Her voice trembled slightly. Sister, Jianan, you. Lu Jianan's body stiffened abruptly, his smile freezing at the corner of his lips. Aang, why are you here? Who brought you here? This place is so dirty, you shouldn't have come. He walked helplessly to Jiang Ying's front, his voice gentle, movements soft and obedient. At this moment, he resembled a devout believer, his eyes overflowing with nothing but sincere affection. That was a side of him I had never seen before. Indeed, the line between love and its absence is starkly clear. I stared at Lu Jianan for a long time, an indescribable bitterness welling up inside me. People are truly strange. In my past life, after I married Lu Jianan, Jiang Ying went abroad and never returned. He now always regrets the past, but if he had wanted to marry her back then, who could have stopped him? If he truly loved her that much, a ticket to the U.S., just over 2,000 yuan. But did Lu Jianan ever go to see Jiang Ying? No. Sometimes I don't know whether to be grateful that he was loyal enough to me in my past life, or to be glad that he was cowardly and weak. Lu Jianan coaxed Jiang Ying to go home. She pursed her lips without saying much, her eyes holding unreadable emotions as she looked at me. In the end, I was left alone at the spot. 5. The drug's effects hit quickly. The two bodyguards stood guard at the door as Lu Jianan instructed, waiting for the well-matched young master he had arranged to arrive. I bit my lower lip, leaning against the nearby table as I struggled unsteadily to stand up, but my legs felt weak, and I nearly stumbled and fell. A strong arm suddenly reached out from behind to steady me. Miss Jiang, be careful. It was Lu Jiayu's assistant. I was slightly panting, my cheeks flushed. Lu Jianan had administered a considerable dose, enough to break down my defenses. Miss Jiang, you've been drugged. I didn't respond to him, just weakly grabbed the wine bottle on the table. As I was about to press the sharp glass shard against my arm after smashing it with a bang, Lu Jiayu in the wheelchair was the first to react. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. Frowning tightly, I have a doctor on call. Don't hurt yourself. Suddenly, I froze, my pupils slightly unfocused. Lu Jiayu's hands were cold, his palms soft, making one yearn for more, to be touched by him, to be caressed by him. I couldn't resist leaning closer to his face, staring at his thin lips. Mr. Lu, may I kiss you? I blinked my eyes. Lu Jiayu's fingers trembled slightly, and his assistant behind him coughed in fright. Miss Jiang, our sir's health, perhaps. Not very. Before he could finish, I paused in my movements. Eventually nodding blankly, reason had ultimately triumphed over desire. Lu Jiayu gave his assistant a cool glance, prompting the assistant to clear his throat and excuse himself to call for the doctor. The bodyguards outside have already been taken care of by Lu Jiayu's people, including the young master of the Zhou family who was just about to enter. It took almost half an hour of struggle. The effects of the drug finally subsided somewhat, and I sat weakly on the sofa. But Lu Jiayu's brow remained tightly furrowed. I didn't know Lu Jianan would do something like this. It's my fault for putting you in such danger. I'm sorry, I didn't think it through properly. His eyes were filled with remorse. Lu Jiayu and Lu Jianan were polar opposites, one gentle, refined, and humble, the other unruly and arrogant. The heavens truly are unfair, to let such a good person die at the age of 30. Seeing my prolonged silence, Lu Jiayu's face darkened further as he said earnestly, Miss Jiang, I will make Jianan apologize to you. This matter won't be left unsettled. He will pay the price. As the words fell, I looked up just in time to catch the fleeting emotion in his eyes. Lu Jiayu was angry. Because Lu Jianan hurt me, in my past life, I accidentally overheard that he liked me, and later I simply kept this matter buried in my heart. I never told anyone. At this moment, I suddenly wanted to ask Lu Jiayu why he liked me. Before I realized it, the words had already slipped out. His expression froze for a moment before he stiffly replied, Miss Jiang, what did you say? I repeated, I want to ask Mr. Lu, why do you like me? The assistant tactfully exited the private room, leaving only me and Lu Jiayu inside. His thin lips pressed into a tight line. A long moment passed without him answering my question. Instead, he asked, what about you? Why did you choose to marry me? Fortune tellers all say I won't live past 30. Lu Jiayu's voice was hoarse, as if mustering the courage to test for an answer. Because Lu Jiayu is wonderful. I leaned slightly forward from the sofa, reaching out to touch his furrowed brow. The fortune teller was wrong, Lu Jiayu. Smile for me, and I promise you'll live 100 years. Everyone says you won't live past 30, but I insist you live 100 years. I want you to live. Lu Jiayu pressed his lips together, staring straight at me, his long restrained emotions seeming on the verge of breaking free. But in just 2 seconds, he masked it all perfectly again. Miss Jiang, I'll take your kind words as a good omen, I said. Lu Jiayu, trust me this once. After a long while, he finally nodded. With the experimental data results from my past life, with the backing of the Jiang and Lu families, the research institute can put the new antibacterial drug into production as early as next week. This time, I hope heaven will show a little more favor to Lu Jiayu. 6. The date of the engagement with Lu Jiayu is drawing nearer by the day, with only the invitations left to be sent out. And Lu Jianan actually still thinks I'm getting engaged to him, due to the drugging incident. Lu Jianan received 30 lashes of family discipline and was confined for 5 days. The moment he was released, he rushed straight to my house. When I came downstairs and saw the butler attending to him, I instinctively frowned. His complexion didn't look too good, somewhat pale. When he saw me, he immediately walked over. Tang. I instinctively took a step back. His movements paused briefly before he continued as if nothing had happened. Drugging you was reckless of me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have used such extreme methods to humiliate you. Lu Jianan lowered his head in apology. I merely curved my lips, not a trace of warmth in my eyes. No need for apologies, Lu Jianan. It's best if we each go our separate ways from now on, and avoid crossing paths. Lu Jianan immediately shook his head and said, Tang, I was wrong. I promise nothing like this will happen again. If my brother hadn't saved you that day, I might have caused irreversible consequences. Tang. I truly know I was wrong. I shouldn't have trampled on your feelings. I know you really wanted to marry me. I know your devotion. He paused, as if steeling his resolve. After a long silence, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Tang, I'll marry you. Consider this my way of making up for drugging you. Suddenly, the living room fell into dead silence. I stared fixedly at Lu Jianan, unable to suppress a cold laugh in my heart. Jiangning appeared at the stairway at some unknown moment. Her eyes slightly red, her voice tinged with grievance. Jianan, what about me then? Didn't you say you were going to marry me? How can you go back on your word? A flash of panic crossed Lu Jianan's eyes as he instinctively glanced at me, but ultimately walked past me to stand before Jiangning. I'm sorry. Tang is deeply in love with me, and I don't want to hurt her. Jiangning cried harder and more miserably, making Lu Jianan even more flustered as he fumbled to comfort her. See how much he loves Jiangning. Now I seem like the villain who's ruining their relationship. I don't want to watch this drama anymore. As I turned to leave, Lu Jianan's hesitant voice came through. Tang, I won't go back on my word. I smiled mockingly, but I had already changed my mind long ago. If possible, I wish I had never met Lu Jianan in my previous life either. 7. After comforting Jiangning, Lu Jianan sat in her room, his thoughts drifting far away. He and Jiang Ruotang grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Jiang Ruotang liked him, so she had always treated him well, and after marriage, her kindness towards him only increased. She even accepted all his rules in bed without exception. He originally thought it would be fine to continue living like this, until Jiang Ruotang discovered the tattoo on his lower back. That was when he was 15 years old. In the school dance studio, he witnessed Jiangning's breathtaking dance. The ethereal silhouette behind the white gauze stirring his heartstrings. From then on, he could never forget it. Jiangning appears in his dreams day and night. He thought about confessing his feelings to her, but her eyes never held a place for him. As long as Jiang Ruotang is around, she seems to only see Jiang Ruotang, content to be her most obedient adopted sister. He was terrified of causing trouble for Jiangning, so he kept his feelings buried deep, secretly tattooing her name on the small of his back. For 10 years, he never forgot that dance, nor did he forget Jiangning. In his past life, if Jiang Ruotang hadn't insisted on making a scene, he thought they wouldn't have met their end by falling off a cliff together. Fortunately, he was reborn. This time he couldn't afford any more regrets, so he proposed breaking off the engagement to Jiang Ruotang and confessed his feelings to Jiangning. He tried every means to cancel the engagement, even going so far as to drug Jiang Ruotang. But for some unknown reason, his heart still felt hollow, not as joyful as expected. 30 lashes and 3 days in confinement made him realize he still wanted to marry Jiang Ruotang, even though it was Jiangning he loved. Jianan, do you really like my sister? Suddenly, Jiangning's voice pulled Lu Jianan back from his thoughts. He snapped out of his daze and met Jiangning's tearful eyes, saying with heartache, I don't like Tang, I only like you. But if you don't like her, why did you marry her? Lu Jianan pressed his lips together, not answering immediately. This was a question he couldn't even understand himself. He only knew he couldn't let Jiang Ruotang go. Since Jiang Ruotang loved him, she should belong to him. Before he could answer, Jiangning asked again, then, Jianan, what do you like about me? Hearing this, Lu Jianan's lips immediately curved into a smile. He couldn't wait to share his secret with Jiang Ying, saying, when I was young, I accidentally saw you rehearsing in the dance studio, and since then, I could never forget you. You could say it was love at first sight. After saying this, Jiang Ying's expression changed slightly as she stared fixedly at Lu Jianan. The love in her eyes was practically overflowing, but she only found it ironic and ridiculous, because she couldn't dance at all. For a fleeting moment, Lu Jianan caught a glimpse of disgust flashing through her eyes, but upon closer look, Jiang Ying's lips curled slightly upward, reverting to her usual gentle and delicate demeanor. Jianan, thank you for liking me. 8. There are only 5 days left until the engagement banquet. The experiment for the new antibacterial drug is progressing smoothly, and a suitable heart is being matched simultaneously. I had just taken off my goggles and stepped out of the lab when I saw Lu Jiayu waiting outside. He was sitting in a wheelchair, and as the temperature in Beijing had dropped, a blanket was draped over his knees. His face was still pale, but at least it looked better than when we first met. There was a bit more color in his cheeks now. I leaned down closer to him and smiled gently. It seems my medicine still works, Mr. Lu. I'm spending a fortune to keep you alive. How about repaying me with your hand in marriage? Lu Jiayu's ear tips instantly turned red. He covered his lips with his hand, cleared his throat, and turned his face away. Then he signaled his assistant behind him to hand me the invitation. I naturally took it over. Only then did he respond with a word, all right. I chuckled softly, and after opening the invitation, my gaze lingered slightly upon seeing our names side by side. A surge of indescribable emotion welled up in my heart simultaneously. In my past life, the engagement banquet between me and Lu Jianan was almost entirely arranged by his mother and mine. The Lu family provided a substantial betrothal gift, but compared to Lu Jiayu in this lifetime, it wasn't even 1/10,000th of what he offered. He nearly gave me all of his family's assets. I recognized his handwriting. When I first received the invitation, I had even complimented the person who wrote it. Never imagining that person would be Lu Jiayu, I couldn't begin to imagine Lu Jiayu personally writing down my name alongside Lu Jianan's. What's on your mind? Is it sincere blessings or full of regrets? Seeing my prolonged silence, Lu Jiayu thought there was an issue with the invitation and asked worriedly, is there something wrong with how it's written? This is my first time writing. I don't have much experience. My mother suggested leaving it to the professionals, but I thought doing this kind of thing myself would be more meaningful. He frowned, and even his assistant couldn't stand it anymore. Lu Jiayu held a high position. Even with his frail health, he had never bowed his head to anyone, yet he was always so humble and cautious with me. Just because you like me, Miss Jiang, Mr. Lu spent days writing the invitation. Even if you don't like it, I never said I didn't like it. I calmly interrupted him, then turned my gaze to Lu Jiayu. Ayu's handwriting is very beautiful. As I finished speaking, I flashed him a smile. Only then did Lu Jiayu's tense expression relax, his eyes gradually filling with amusement. Just as he was about to speak, an uninvited guest arrived at the lab. Bro, what are you doing here? 9. Lu Jianan's suspicious gaze fell upon Lu Jiayu until his peripheral vision caught sight of the invitation in my hand. Then he raised an eyebrow and said, you could have just sent an assistant to deliver the invitation. Brother, you're not in good health, there's no need to push yourself. He walked past Lu Jiayu. When he familiarly tried to take my hand, I avoided it, leaving his gesture hanging mid-air. Tang, Lu Jianan, perhaps you should look at the name on the invitation first. I handed the invitation to Lu Jianan. The marriage between the Lu and Jiang families has been the talk of the town lately. How could Lu Jianan be so oblivious, even now? He hasn't realized that the person I'm engaged to isn't him. Lu Jianan might have sensed something was amiss, finally willing to open the invitation for a glance. His expression instantly stiffened the next second. When he clearly saw the names on it, he looked at me in disbelief. You're marrying Lu Jiayu, Jiang Ruotang. Have you lost your mind? Everyone says Lu Jiayu won't live past 30, and you still want to marry him. Are you prepared to be a widow in all but name? He growled, his face flushing crimson. Lu Jiayu sat in his wheelchair, his sharp dark eyes flickering with complex emotions as he restrained the surging turmoil within. But in the end, he remained silent. In this relationship, he was too humble, not even daring to harbor the slightest hope. I wish he could say to Lu Jianan, Jiang Ruotang is my fiancée, your sister-in-law. Yet he looked at me, the light in his eyes gradually faded. Jiang Ruotang, I know you're angry with me. But you can't use your lifelong happiness to spite me, Lu Jianan said through gritted teeth. And I just said calmly, I'm not being spiteful, Lu Jianan, I've told you many times, I won't marry you, and I don't love you anymore, you're just too full of yourself, you like Jiang Ying, so I'm stepping aside, so I'm going to marry you, and you stay out of it, okay. The moment the final words fell, Lu Jianan stood frozen in place, his eyes bloodshot, his lips parted slightly. His expression full of shock, he couldn't believe these words had come from my mouth. Even more unbelievable was that the person who once cherished him above all else no longer loved him. After a long silence, he clenched his teeth and said stubbornly, "You're lying to me, Jiang Ruotang, you're lying to me." I didn't respond to him anymore. Is it me deceiving him, or is he deceiving himself? He knows it perfectly well in his heart. 10. Lu Jianan tore up the invitation and left. He still refuses to believe that this engagement banquet truly has nothing to do with him. But I'm not obligated to explain anymore. In this lifetime, he chose the path he always wanted to take, so he shouldn't regret it. Actually, Kanan was right. After a long silence, Lu Jiayu finally spoke up. He looked at me with an inscrutable gaze. This time, I didn't say anything more. Actually, I'm somewhat disappointed. Lu Jiayu didn't believe he could survive, so likewise. He never believed in me either. On the way sending me back, Lu Jiayu kept glancing at me from the corner of his eye. But I never looked at him, just calmly gazed out the window until the car stopped outside the Jiang family villa. As I was getting off the car, Lu Jiayu finally spoke again, asking in a low voice like a child who had done something wrong, "Ruotang, are you angry with me?" I pressed my lips together without speaking and turned my face to look at him. Lu Jiayu said earnestly, "Ruotang, if I've made you angry, it's my fault, but please believe me, it was unintentional." I asked, "Lu Jiayu, don't you believe I can keep you alive?" He froze. Suddenly, I let out a low chuckle. I understand now. Lu Jiayu, the engagement banquet is in 5 days, you can cancel any time. This time, the choice is yours. After saying that, I got out of the car and left. I knew Lu Jiayu was watching me the whole time, but I didn't look back. Thinking oneself infallible seems to be a common flaw of all people. Lu Jianan is no exception, and neither am I. I thought I could help him. I thought that by marrying him, he would have no regrets, yet it seems I never asked whether Lu Jiayu was willing. 11. The Jiang family villa was brightly lit. The moment I entered the foyer, I saw Lu Jianan kneeling stiffly before my mother, just like the day he was reborn, only that time he was begging to cancel our marriage, but this time it's exactly the opposite. "Auntie, I was immature back then, I shouldn't have insisted on canceling the arranged marriage with a Tang. All the faults are mine, but you can't let a Tang marry my brother. His affair with Jiang Ying has become public knowledge recently, and mother has long been disappointed in him." Even though she wasn't entirely satisfied with my marriage to Lu Jiayu at first, he later proved himself in every possible way. Every detail of this engagement banquet was personally overseen by him. My mother could clearly see who genuinely cared for me. Just as she frowned and was about to send Lu Jianan away, she looked up and saw me. I smiled and told my mother, "I'll handle this." Mother nodded and went upstairs. The living room was left with only me and Lu Jianan. He looked at me, propped himself up from the table with his right hand, and stood up, having knelt for a while. His knees were somewhat numb, and he almost lost his balance. I frowned. I thought I had made myself clear enough. "What are you doing coming to my house again?" Lu Jianan froze, his gaze turning somewhat resentful. "Tang, I only want what's best for you." "What's best for me?" I let out a mocking chuckle, then raised my eyes to stare at Lu Jianan as I stepped closer to him. "Lu Jianan, don't you like Jiang Ying? Now that you've gotten your wish, we've called off the engagement, you're free to marry Jiang Ying. What exactly are you still unhappy about?" As soon as my words fell, Lu Jianan's breath hitched slightly, his expression blank for a moment. I don't know. I thought it should be like this too, but I can't watch you marry Lu Jiayu." He stared at me with piercing eyes, glowing red in their depths. I just found it hilarious. That's just how Lu Jianan is, heaven's favored son who acts willfully without consequence, knowing someone will always clean up his messes. Nor does he ever understand the concept of empathy. I will always remember, once when a typhoon hit the capital, Lu Jianan stubbornly craved cakes from Nanjing Street and insisted I go buy them. With no choice, I drove through the rain to get them for him, a 4-hour round trip. By the time I got home, it was already past midnight, coincidentally that day. I'd forgotten my keys and called Lu Jianan multiple times, but he never answered. Later he explained to me that he had fallen asleep, so he didn't hear the phone, but I knew he wasn't asleep. It was just too cold and he was too lazy to get out of bed. Wanting cake was just a passing whim, but if he asks, I have to give it to him. Why? Because I like Lu Jianan. I can only search for sweetness among broken glass. Liking him is an exhausting and painful thing, but I persisted for 10 years. And I truly can't go on anymore, nor do I want to. After a long silence, I said weakly, Lu Jianan, you can't have your cake and eat it too, but you clearly like me. Choosing Lu Jiayu, isn't that just settling for second best? You've liked me for so long, how could you suddenly change? I don't believe it. Lu Jianan looked at me unwillingly, while I just curled my lips mockingly and said coldly, why don't you understand yet? I stopped liking you long ago. 12. The living room fell into dead silence. Lu Jianan pressed his lips together in prolonged silence, the pain in his eyes clearly visible. As I moved past him to leave, he suddenly raised his hand to grab my arm, his voice soft and tentative as he asked, Tang, have you also come back? I froze for a moment but didn't deny it. Lu Jianan seemed to understand instantly. The corners of his lips curled into a self-mocking arc as his fingers clenched my arm so tightly his knuckles turned white. I couldn't help but frown slightly as tears welled up in his eyes. No wonder you didn't choose me anymore, Tang, since you've also come back. You know Lu Jiayu will die at 30, why would you still choose him? Why would you choose him over me? He growled, his voice breaking toward the end as his entire body trembled. Lu Jianan's sudden outburst stirred a pang of bitterness in my heart. I'd rarely seen him cry. The only time was when he begged me on his deathbed. His face covered in blood yet still pleading with me in desperation. If there's a next life, let's not be husband and wife anymore. Okay, but now you see, I've already agreed to him, already made the promise, but Lu Jianan is still not satisfied. He's asking for too much. I can't give it. Lu Jianan, you should go back. He shook his head desperately, trying to stay by my side like he used to, but Lu Jianan forgot. Only the beloved have the privilege to act willfully. I won't leave, Tang. Give me one more chance. I won't make mistakes again. Won't let you feel sad or hurt anymore. I've liked Jianan for so many years, I thought I'd keep loving her forever, but I realized it's different. I don't know what to do either. I just know that without you, I would truly die. The more he spoke, the more pained he became, cautiously moving closer to me as he tried to take my hand. I avoided it, then looked up at him calmly and said, Lu Jianan, this was your choice. No one will wait for you in the same place forever, so you can't blame me. Nor can you go back on your word. The moment my words fell, all color drained from Lu Jianan's face. 12. Lu Jianan was asked to leave the villa, but he didn't go, stubbornly remaining standing in the courtyard. His gaze was fixed unblinkingly on the tightly shut door. Jianan went out from home, though no one knew what she said to him. Suddenly, he went berserk, gripping Jianan's neck with a deathly hold. His eyes bulging with fury, until a passing security guard forcibly separated them. Only then could Jianan catch her breath. No one knows what she said to Lu Jianan, but at night, she came to me. Jianan knocked on my door. Sister, can I come in? I raised an eyebrow, looked up at her, and nodded. There were still visible red marks on her neck, left by Lu Jianan's choking. Jianan was someone I picked up at the school gate when we were young. She was 6, I was 8, small and soft. Just with a dirty face, I begged my mother to adopt her, to make her my little sister. All these years, I treated her well. Whatever I had, she had too. When people accused her of flaunting my name to bully others, she'd bare her teeth and fight back. I knew she wasn't exactly kind, but Jianan has never hurt me. She obediently walked up to me and asked in a soft, gentle voice, Sister, you haven't spoken to me these past few days. Is it because of what happened at the club that day? I was startled, then smiled. No, Lu Jiayu told me that day. They were able to find me in time because Jianan sent the message promptly. Sister, Lu Jianan is not someone worthy of entrusting your life to. I know you don't want to marry him either. That's why I've just been pretending with him. I only, halfway through her words, she paused, her eyes filling with disgust, wanted to help you get rid of his pestering. He's not good enough for you. I stared fixedly at her, pressing my lips together without speaking. In my past life, after I married Lu Jianan, Jianan left without even attending the wedding. She only left me a wedding gift. For years afterward, we rarely kept in touch, so I never regarded Jianan as a love rival. Whether in my past life or this one, I never blamed her. She did nothing wrong. it was Lu Jianan who was at fault. After a long silence, I asked her, "What did you say to Lu Jianan?" Jiang Ying's expression visibly stiffened before she finally tried to appease me by hooking her pinky with mine, saying, "It's not important, the important thing is, that annoying Lu Jianan is finally gone." I nodded suspiciously. The following days, I didn't see Lu Jianan again, and thought he had finally given up. Until the day of the engagement banquet, Lu Jianan suddenly burst into the dressing room and locked me inside. He held me and cried like a child, looking even paler than a few days ago, his eyes bloodshot. He kept repeating, "I was wrong, A Tang, I was wrong, it was my blindness, I mistook you for someone else, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I failed you." Only then did I realize what Jiang Ying had said to him that day. Lu Jianan lifted his shirt, gazing at me pitifully. The tattoo on his waist had been removed, only to be replaced with my name. At that moment, I only felt Lu Jianan was pitiful and ridiculous. He begged for my forgiveness, pleaded for me to give him another chance, yet I remained silent, just calmly gazing at the boy I had loved for 10 years. Heaven truly has a way of playing tricks on people. In the end, Lu Jianan was knocked unconscious by bodyguards and dragged away. 13. The day before the engagement banquet. Lu Jiayu came to see me on his own initiative that day. He didn't say or do anything, just sat quietly in the lab watching me work all day, occasionally lending a hand. Lu Jiayu asked me out for dinner after I got off work. Actually, in our previous lives, we had almost no interaction beyond family banquets and rarely met privately. I once asked Lu Jiayu why he liked me, but he didn't answer. But that day, he gave me the answer. At 15, a breathtaking dance. When I heard these words, my heart skipped a beat. He said, "It's not that I don't trust you, I just don't trust myself, Ruotang. No one wants to live more than I do, and no one wishes for your happiness more than I do. He's just scared, terrified. If he really died at 30, what should I do? How should I spend those long years? He's afraid I'll be lonely, afraid I'll have to face the darkness alone. Even if he could make all the preparations before his death, he's still afraid. Afraid there might be something he overlooked." Only later did I come to realize, I thought Lu Jiayu and I had no connection, only because he hid it too well. The anonymous annual investment in the research institute, every thoughtful arrangement at each banquet I attended, the most satisfying birthday gift every year, even including my grand wedding in the previous life, the one-of-a-kind wedding dress, and a ring I designed myself. Lu Jianan thought this was just Lu Jiayu's deepest blessing as an elder brother, yet no one had ever imagined, hidden within this are Lu Jiayu's countless mountains and rivers. He has walked such a long road alone. Fortunately, this time, I saw it. 14. Half a month after the engagement banquet, Lu Jiayu successfully underwent a heart transplant surgery. The new medication caused no adverse reactions in him. In his previous life, his body was extremely weak. He didn't survive past the 20th day before succumbing to infection and passing away. But this time, he survived. Over 3 months, the entire Lu family wept with joy. In the hospital room, Lu Jiayu sat leaning against the bed, his gaze fixed on me. "Uncle and aunt, I can't marry Ruotang. The one I love is Jiang Ying." And after a long pause, he finally said, "Ruotang, thank you." I curved my lips slightly, leaned forward a little, and just like that time we met at the club, reached out to touch his eyebrows. "I told you, if you smile, I'll guarantee you a long life of 100 years. As the words fell, Lu Jiayu smiled. Half a year later, I saw Lu Jianan once. He hit someone while drunk driving, was sentenced to 3 years, and the once proud son of heaven fell into the mire. No one would indulge his willfulness anymore, just like in our past life. Jiang Yingru left the country the day before my wedding with Lu Jiayu, leaving me another wedding gift. The farce was finally over, and I, Lu Jiayu, no longer walked alone. The end. Story 2. After being reborn, the first thing I did was go to the hospital to abort the child in my womb, and then I filed for divorce from Gu Jing. I didn't fight for the custody of my son, Gu Sherbai, nor did I claim other properties. All I asked for was a seaside view house in a coastal small town. The small 3-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment was decorated by me to be very cozy, and all the appliances I bought were parent-child sets. At first, Gu Sherbai thought that all of this was prepared for him and scoffed at it. It was not until he found that the pink children's room was piled high with dolls and the wardrobe was filled with beautiful princess dresses that he began to feel panicked. Both he and Gu Jing thought that I was ill, that I had gone crazy. He cried and questioned me. "Mom, I'm your own son. Why don't you even look at me?" But you're so good to the daughter you imagined. He didn't know that it wasn't an imagination. I really had a beautiful and well-behaved daughter. She lived in the memories of my previous life. 1.5 years after settling down in the coastal small town, I received a call from Gu Jing, asking me why. The process of our divorce was very uneventful, as simple as having a meal together. We both tacitly agreed that Gu Shirbai would stay in the Gu family. We didn't argue much about the custody issue. He never asked me the reason for my sudden decision to divorce and coldly completed the procedures. I thought he didn't care, just like he had never cared about the joys and sorrows of his wife, me, during all these years of our marriage. Now, half a year later, he suddenly asked me, why. At that time, I was hanging a portrait in the newly painted pink children's room. A woman was sitting on the bay window holding a little girl. Outside the window were the blue sea and rows of windmills. The golden sunlight fell on the little girl's face, masking her sickly pallor. I stared blankly at the face of the little girl in the painting. Why? I wanted to say that it was because we were supposed to have a daughter, and her name was Gu Shirwei. She was very beautiful and obedient, but unfortunately, she wasn't healthy. 70% of congenital heart diseases can be detected during prenatal checkups, but she happened to be among the unfortunate 30%. You had a brief fatherly love for her, but soon you would lose patience because of her frequent hospitalizations and surgeries. You would start to stay out all night, using the bad family atmosphere as an excuse. When I was exhausted from taking care of her, when I was praying outside the ICU that death would not take her away. When I signed the consent form to give up treatment alone and watched the doctor pull out her oxygen tube, you would be having an affair with your mistress outside and even openly bring Gu Shirbai with you, making him happily call another woman mom. But in the end, I said nothing. I just asked Gu Jing, did you have breakfast with Miss Zhou today? 1 year after settling down in the coastal small town, I met Gu Shirbai. At that time, I had just returned from a trip to Xinjiang. I was walking home wearily with a canvas bag on my back when I saw the figures of the big and the small standing in front of the corridor. I instinctively stopped and kept a distance from them. As time passed, I rarely thought of this father and son. They didn't like me, and my feelings for them had also faded away during the long period of disappointment in my previous life. I thought that as long as I didn't deliberately seek them out in this life, we would never meet again. It was Gu Shirbai who spoke first. Although he was only 6 years old, he was precocious. His words were milky but hurtful. The school organized a parent-child trip here. Grandma and Grandpa said that since I'm here, I should come and see you. This is the courtesy and grace that a Gu family member should have. I nodded silently. He really resembled Gu Jing a lot. Not only in his delicate and superior features but also in the cold look in his eyes when he looked at me. In my previous life, when I broke down at Weiwei's funeral and when I climbed up to the 36th floor rooftop, the father and son looked at me with the same cold eyes. Gu Jing said, Xia, stop being naughty. He also said, Mom, stop being naughty. In fact, a month after the divorce, Gu Shirbai contacted me. He heard from someone that I had moved to this coastal small town. He specifically called and told me disdainfully, they said that after you moved to the seaside, you specially decorated a children's room and even replaced all the daily necessities in the house with parent-child sets. But I won't live with you. Don't waste your efforts. I calmly replied with an and then I heard him cheer on the other end of the phone. Wow, Aunt Zhou gave me a new game console again. Aunt Zhou is the best. Then he hung up the phone in a hurry. Obviously, my departure didn't have any impact on his life, compared with getting along with me, his biological mother. He has always preferred those games and also liked Zhou Tian, who always played games with him and gave him game consoles. But now, the coldness on his face suddenly cracked. His peach blossom eyes, which were so similar to Gu Jing's, were instantly filled with tears. He gritted his teeth and stared at me stubbornly. This time, it was my turn to look at him coldly. In the end, he couldn't hold on any longer. Before the tears fell, he turned around and tried to run away. But he tripped and fell to the ground with a thud. He lay on the ground for a while without getting up, just looking back at me. He was always like this. Every time I got close to him, he would always put on an impatient face, speak coldly to me, and show all kinds of disgust. Once my attention was slightly away from him, he would deliberately fall down or pretend to be uncomfortable, making me feel soft-hearted and helpless. But this time I watched him coldly and remained indifferent. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief, with a look of confusion, puzzlement, and sadness on his face. He burst into tears in front of me with a "Wow, you're a liar, a big liar, you clearly said that you would love me forever and stay with me forever." 3. Gu Jing frowned and accused me. "Since although the child is young, he actually understands everything, you shouldn't be so cold to him." His expression was serious, and his attitude was as condescending as ever. It had always been like this between him and me. We were not like a husband and wife but more like an employee and a boss. Most of the time when he was at home, he didn't take the initiative to communicate with me. It was always me who took the initiative to report every bit of my life to him. Regarding the part about myself, he was always indifferent. Only when it came to Gu Shirbai would he interfere a little. He would even scold me sharply in front of Gu Shirbai and the servants without showing any mercy. As a result, every time he showed even the slightest displeasure, I would unconsciously reflect on myself, engage in internal struggles, and repeatedly think about what I did wrong and what needed to be improved. Now, seeing his face again, I only felt extremely annoyed. "Have you forgotten what you said to me when we got divorced?" He said that he hoped I wouldn't disturb Gu Shirbai's life in the future. Gu Shirbai was still young and would soon get used to living without me as his mother, and that would be the best for him. That was the longest passage he had ever said to me during the entire divorce process. Now he said matter-of-factly, "I was too naive at that time. Shirbai is your only child. Mother and son are connected by heart. He needs you, and you also." I interrupted him, "But I don't need him." Gu Jing was somewhat taken aback and stunned. Neither he nor Gu Shirbai had ever seen me being so blunt. It seemed that even now he still didn't understand my determination when I left a year ago, just like he would never understand in his life that Gu Shirbai was not my only child. I once had a daughter, even if only I knew about it. On the day of my rebirth, I dreamed that Wei Wei was crying, and she also called me a liar. She said, "Mom, you promised me that after I'm gone, you would live well." I felt so sorry for her crying. I promised her that this time, Mom would definitely do it. I could only fulfill one of the promises I made to her and Gu Shirbai. For once, my love for Gu Shirbai was no less than that for Wei Wei. He was the child I gave birth to after going through great hardships, the flesh and blood that came from my body. I once eagerly anticipated his arrival, when he couldn't speak yet. As long as he gave me a sweet smile, I could forget all the hardships and pain of being Mrs. Gu. At that time, I was willing to give everything, even my life, to him, as long as he could grow up happily and healthily. Gu Jing didn't love me. The story between him and me was very ordinary. We were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. When we reached the right age and didn't have suitable partners, we were matched up by our elders. I once felt uneasy because of this ordinariness. During my school days, I had witnessed what Gu Jing was like when he was in love with someone. The young Gu Jing was much more energetic and cheerful than he is now. Every time I saw him, he seemed to be smiling. He would smile indifferently when he was scolded, smile triumphantly when he won a basketball game, and smile with joy when he saw the girl he loved. When his peach blossom eyes smiled, they curved into the shape of a crescent moon, like the warm winter sun, making people's hearts flutter and fall in love at first sight. At that time, he would send the breakfast he made with his own hands to the girl he loved early in the morning regardless of the severe cold or intense heat. He would release sky lanterns all over the sky for her, and he would arrange flowers all over the playground and loudly express his love in front of everyone. He was passionate and crazy. That girl was a top student. She won awards in various physics competitions all the way and skipped grades early to go abroad to continue pursuing the truth of physics. After that, Gu Jing seemed to become indifferent to everything. Before the wedding, I once asked Gu Jing if we would really be happy. He answered me, "We will." Love made me blindly ignore the indifference in his tone at that time. I comforted myself that people would always grow up and become more composed, and the way he loved someone would also become more composed. It was not until Zhou Tian appeared by his side, a young and beautiful game planner. Then I realized that there was only one way for Gu Jing to love someone. He began to smile when replying to WeChat messages, to pay attention to the lipstick shades that he had never cared about before, to study women's perfumes, and to accompany the other person to stay up late to test the newly launched games. When I found his company nervously because he didn't come home all night, he was having breakfast with another woman and carefully peeling an egg for her bit by bit. That was a treatment I had never enjoyed. At that time, I thought it didn't matter if Gu Jing didn't love me. At least there was someone in this family who loved me. At least Gu Shirbai loved me. At that time, I didn't know that Gusherbai didn't love me as much as I thought. This child would later break my heart piece by piece. 5. That day ended unhappily, with the tempers of Gu Jing and Gusherbai. I thought they would definitely not come again. Unexpectedly, the next day, Gusherbai appeared downstairs of my house again, carrying a small school bag. This time, he was alone. When the property management contacted me, I was painting. On the beautiful grassland of Ely, a little girl in a princess dress was running freely. I didn't have any photos or videos of Weiwei. I was afraid that as time passed, one day I would forget what she looked like. So, what I did most often was to draw her bit by bit as I remembered her. From when she was a baby to the age of 5 when her life was frozen in time, I drew a lot, and they filled every corner of my house. But then I thought, how could my Weiwei only be in the hospital bed? So, I would go on trips every once in a while to take pictures of beautiful scenery and then draw her together with these beautiful landscapes. I was drawing this one a bit slowly. When I was riding a horse in Xinjiang, I hurt my right shoulder. It was still a bit difficult for me to raise my hand. So I hadn't finished this painting even after a month of working on it on and off. That was the first time I rode a horse. When I chose that white horse, the young man in the horse team hesitated and tried to persuade me, saying that this horse had a bad temper, it bullied strangers, and it had thrown several people off. I smiled and said it didn't matter because the white horse was really beautiful. As a result, when the group was halfway through the journey, the white horse indeed threw a tantrum. It suddenly knelt down on its front legs and threw me onto the grass. Everyone in the same team was startled. When a little girl's mother came to help me up, the little girl gently helped me pat the grass debris off my face with her small hand and asked me sweetly in a soft voice, "Auntie, does it hurt?" Later, I took a lot of photos for her and her mother. She reminded me of Weiwei, but in fact, the farthest place Weiwei had been to in her previous life was this coastal small town. At that time, her health was slightly better, and I planned a family vacation, but Gu Jing said he was busy, and Gu Sherbai said he wanted to participate in the testing of a new game in Gu Jing's company. In the end, only my daughter and I came here. Those few short days were peaceful and wonderful. During the day, I taught her to draw in the room, and in the morning and evening, we went to the beach to pick up seashells together. She said that when she got better, she wanted to live in this place for the rest of her life. So, when I got divorced, all I asked for was this seaside view house. This is a home belonging to me and Weiwei, having nothing to do with Gu Sherbai or Gu Jing. I didn't want Gu Sherbai to set foot in this house at all. Without hesitation, I gave the contact information of Gu Jing and Gu Sherbai's grandparents to the property management. 6. A few minutes later, the property management called again, saying that when he contacted Gu Jing, Gu Sherbai ran into the community and disappeared. After all, I had raised Gu Sherbai with great care. There was no way I could really let something happen to him. I sighed, put down the paintbrush, and went downstairs to look for him. I searched the whole community, sweating all over. In the end, I saw him waiting in front of my door, with a look of complacency on his face that said, "I knew you wouldn't leave me alone." I didn't say anything. When I opened the door, I let him slip in like a flash. Like a proud little lion, he held his head high and began to patrol the territory everywhere. He asked me, "Which is my room? You must have bought me a game console, right? I want to go to the room and play games." I didn't answer. I asked him to sit in the living room and wait for Gu Jing to pick him up. And then I sat back in front of the easel and focused on finishing the painting. I had only painted a few strokes when I heard a loud crash coming from the children's room. I quickly walked over and saw that the painting hanging on the wall above the head of the bed had fallen to the ground. The frame was in pieces, and the knocked-over perfume liquid had soaked Weiwei's face beyond recognition. Gu Sherbai stepped on the bed and looked at me with a helpless expression. I don't like this painting. Why did you hang someone else's portrait in my room? Why are you holding her in the painting?" I knew that he might just want to take the painting down and didn't break it on purpose. I also knew that he was still a child and I shouldn't lose my temper over something he didn't understand. However, my tone of voice still couldn't help being a bit harsh. "Didn't I ask you to wait for your father in the living room? Don't touch things randomly anymore." He sensed my restrained emotions, and his expression showed a bit of vulnerability. "Before, whenever I broke something, you would always ask me first if I was hurt." I didn't answer. My gaze fell on the bed sheet that he had stepped on and dirted, and I couldn't help frowning. "Come down first." He still stood on the bed without moving, staring straight at me. "Mom, who is this girl you painted? Why did you paint her so many times? Why is every painting in the house of her?" He was still too young to hide the fear and unease in his eyes. He saw those paintings that filled the house, and the girl in the paintings had eyebrows and eyes similar to his. Mom, why do the security uncle and the uncles and aunts living here all say that you don't have a son, but only a daughter? I said I'm your son, but they said I'm a liar. Even when I showed them our group photo, they still didn't believe me. This is my room, right? He jumped off the bed, as if to prove something. He opened the wardrobe, but was stunned when he saw the wardrobe full of princess dresses. Why did you buy so many dresses? Where are my clothes? Why aren't there any of my clothes? He rummaged around in the wardrobe, and finally stared at me with wide eyes, finding nothing, hoping to get an answer from me that could soothe him. I looked at his eyes gradually filled with tears and remained silent. His tears fell one by one in my silence. Suddenly, he went crazy, crying and pulling out the princess dresses in the wardrobe one by one and throwing them on the bed. He swept all the dolls on the bay window to the ground, unreasonably trying to assert his status. Why did you put someone else's dresses in my wardrobe? I don't like dolls. Why did you put so many dolls in my room? I don't like this bed and quilt. This is a bed for girls. I don't like pink. Why did you make my room this color? Why are you holding another girl? Why did you hang the painting of you and someone else in my room? I don't like her. I hate her. Hate her. This time, I couldn't bear it anymore. Gu get out. This isn't your room. There isn't a room for you here. 7. When Gu Jing came to pick him up, Gu Shirbai said to him in a panic, Dad, Mom has gone crazy. She keeps telling everyone that she only has a daughter. 8. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came again a month later, they both became very cautious in their attitudes. Gu Jing said, Sinclair, you're ill. He asked me to have a video call with my relatives and friends, and let them tell me that the daughter I painted, the daughter I told all the neighbors I loved deeply, didn't exist and was just my imagination. They took out the family photo album and forcibly pulled me to recall the past with them, but our past was too meager, just like this photo album that couldn't be filled. It was almost impossible to find a few group photos of the three of us. Most of the photos recorded Gu Shirbai's growth, with some photos of me and him mixed in, as he gradually grew up. Perhaps it was the nature of boys that made him get closer to the person in the family who had more authority and could provide him with better conditions. He understood Gu Jing's indifference and alienation towards me, and he didn't want to take photos with me anymore. Now, they were holding that photo album with hardly any photos of me, recounting every bit of the past, desperately trying to convince me that I had never had a daughter. I sneered, Are you saying that I'm crazy? Gu Jing shook his head. No, Sinclair, you're just ill. He took out a surgical consent form, held my hand, and his tone was even a bit choked up. Sinclair, why didn't you tell me that we originally had another child? I looked at him in silence. Guilt and regret appeared on his face. Regarding Zhou Tian, I can explain. It's not what you think. He said that he only paid more attention to Zhou Tian because he cherished her talent, and being good to her was just a means to win over his subordinates. His tone was gentler than ever before. Sinclair, I know that you were impulsive and had an abortion and divorced me because you misunderstood the relationship between me and Zhou Tian. Afterwards, you regretted it, so you imagined that you had a daughter. Sinclair, it's my fault. I didn't maintain a proper distance with my subordinate, which made you misunderstand and feel sad, and caused you to be so seriously ill. We were husband and wife for 12 years in the previous life, and I had never seen Gu Jing speak to me in such a lowly manner. I stared at him in surprise, as if I was meeting this person for the first time. You know, in the previous life, when I noticed something was wrong between him and Zhou Tian, every time I questioned and probed him, he would only coldly retort, Sinclair, are you crazy? Even half a year ago, when he called to ask me why, he still didn't answer my question in the end. Now, he thought I was really ill, and suddenly he could talk. For the first time, he explained his relationship with Zhou Tian to me. He said, Sinclair, you're ill and need treatment. Let me and Shirbai accompany you and take care of you. Okay, I told him to get out with Gu Shirbai. 9. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came for the second time, they brought a psychologist with them. At that time, I had just come back from Mexico a few days ago. The doctor's surname was Lin. He took a look at my neck and his tone was as easygoing as if we were old friends who had known each other for a long time. What's wrong with your neck? I raised my hand and touched the thin purple mark on my neck and replied casually, I had a little accident when I was playing sea paragliding in Cancun a few days ago. That was the last stop of my trip to Mexico. When I was gliding in the air over the sea on a paraglider pulled by a speedboat, the rope connecting the speedboat suddenly broke. I was caught off guard and fell into the sea from dozens of meters in the air. Although I was wearing a life jacket, the rope of the paraglider strangled my neck and wrapped me and the seat together. I couldn't float to the surface at all. I gradually lost my strength due to lack of oxygen during the struggle and almost died in that sea, fortunately. The guy driving the speedboat dived into the water in time to save me. Thinking about it now, it still feels thrilling. Dr. Lin didn't ask further. He took a look at the painting on the easel whose paint hadn't dried yet. Wei Wei was sitting on the paraglider, smiling at the blue sky and white clouds. He politely asked me if he could take a look at my other paintings. After I agreed, he carefully looked at all the paintings in my house, and then held one of them and asked me, "Can you tell me the creative idea of this painting?" It was a view of the water from an overhead perspective. Wei Wei was floating on the water face up, smiling and spreading her arms, as if welcoming and trying to embrace something. I painted this after I came back from bungee jumping in the Gandaki River in Nepal. There were quite a few tourists who went bungee jumping that day. They were either nervous or excited and sought encouragement from their companions or the staff. Only I had a calm expression. The staff joked with me in English, saying that I didn't look like I was here to have fun, but rather like I was here to commit suicide, and he didn't even dare to push me, although he said that, when he pushed me down, he didn't show any mercy at all. The wind during the rapid fall pressed against my cheeks and my eyes. The momentary feeling of weightlessness made me in a trance as if I had returned to the end of my previous life when I jumped off the 37th floor. In fact, the memories and sensations at that time were very vague. Everything ended in just a blink of an eye, but this time, the feeling of freedom during the fall was so clear. When I was approaching the water surface, I had a hallucination. I saw Wei Wei's figure faintly appearing in the water. She smiled and stretched out her arms to me, wanting to hug me, but the moment I tried to hold her tightly, she shattered into the sparkling waves of the Gandaki River. I didn't answer Dr. Lin's question. Dr. Lin was very patient. He patiently tried to analyze the logic behind my actions. Sinclair, when you had an abortion, the baby was just an embryo that hadn't developed gender characteristics. Why did you think it was a girl? Is it possible that you projected yourself onto it? I laughed. Are you saying that I'm narcissistic? No. Dr. Lin shook his head. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Is there a possibility that you transferred your resentment towards your husband onto the child, but after you had the abortion, you regretted it, so you created an imaginary girl based on yourself? Similarly, it's not that you don't love Bai anymore, you love him too much, but you also take out your anger on him. You can only pour all your love for him onto this imaginary girl, but this little girl is too dangerous for you. He let out a soft sigh. Wild riding, paragliding, bungee jumping. Sinclair, have you noticed that you're always pursuing high-risk games? This imaginary little girl is inducing you to test death. If you don't open your heart and accept treatment, the consequences will be unimaginable. Sinclair, I want to help you. Gu Jing chimed in beside him. Sinclair, accept treatment. Let us help you and take care of you. Okay. Gu Bai also came forward and tried to hold my hand, showing an unprecedentedly obedient attitude. I said, how could Mom suddenly not love me anymore? It turns out that you're ill. Let us help you. Mom, can you also paint a picture for me? You've never painted for me. I interrupted him. I have painted for you. On your birthday last year, I gave you a portrait of you as a birthday gift. I was only above average in my academic performance since I was a child, and I couldn't compare with the top students that Gu Jing liked. But I had a great talent for art and was admitted to the best art academy in the country. Unfortunately, my parents always thought that I couldn't earn much money just by painting. They hoped that I would get married as soon as possible after graduating from the art academy, so that they wouldn't have to worry about me anymore and could go to live in New Zealand with my elder brother with peace of mind. I compromised, because the person they introduced to me was Gu Jing, at that time. I thought that I could still continue painting after getting married, but I soon became pregnant with Gu Bai. Family chores and raising Gu Bai gradually took up a lot of my time. Whenever I wanted to focus and paint a good painting, Gu Bai would suddenly start crying and making a fuss. I could only put down the paintbrush to coax him, and gradually I neglected my painting, until Gu Bai's 5th birthday, on a whim. I picked up the paintbrush that I hadn't used for a long time and painted a portrait of him. But he obviously liked the game console that Zhou Tian gave him better and casually threw the portrait aside. Later, I saw that painting under the small desk in his room, folded into a small square and used to prop up the table leg. 10. Gu Bai defended himself in a trembling voice. I didn't do it on purpose. I must have taken the wrong one. I smiled and exposed him. No, you did it on purpose. Because that day, you were dawdling and refused to take a bath. I confiscated your game console, and you deliberately did this to get back at me. You've always been like this. Whenever I don't do as you wish, you would hurt me by destroying the gifts I gave you and trampling on my kindness. Because you know that I love you and care about you, and I will be sad if you do this. You want to make me sad. Gu Shirbai's face turned slightly pale, and he stammered for a long time but couldn't say anything. 11. I raised my eyes and looked at Gu Jing. In fact, I had already seen his hidden intention of making peace. For example, in the previous life, Gu Shirbai's school never organized a parent-child trip. For example, with so many bodyguards and nannies in the Gu family, how could they let Gu Shirbai run out alone and not be in a hurry at all? Also, whether it was in the previous life or after being reborn, in fact, he hadn't worn the clothes I bought for him for a long time. From a certain day on, he, who had never bothered about his clothes before, started buying clothes and bringing them home himself. Later, I found out that all those clothes were bought for him by Zhou Tian. To make Zhou Tian happy, he never touched the clothes I bought for him again, and even changed his perfume to the leather scent that Zhou Tian liked. But these few times when he came to see me, he specifically wore the clothes I bought for him and sprayed the woody perfume that I preferred. I just didn't care. I didn't care why he suddenly wanted to make up with me after a year. I also didn't care why, since I had already made room, he didn't just bring Zhou Tian into the house directly. Because I didn't care, I didn't expose it. It's just that he had been so arrogant in front of me for so long. Even when trying to make peace, he couldn't let go of his pride. He only thought of using Gu Shirbai to make me soft-hearted and take the initiative to come back to him. Now, he thought I was ill. It seemed that he had suddenly found an excuse to lower his head to me. His attitude changed 180 degrees. In an instant, he learned to be gentle and accommodating, as if because I was a patient, I suddenly became a fragile item that needed his protection. All his actions had a great and selfless reason. For my own good, he performed so sincerely that I almost believed him. Gu Jing, you said that there's nothing between you and Zhou Tian. Then why did you spend a lot of money to find high-quality jade because she is prone to getting sick? Carve a Buddha statue with your own hands, and then kneel step by step up the 81 steps of Nanshan Temple and ask a senior monk to consecrate it, even when Wei Wei was so seriously ill in the previous life. As her father, he had never done such a thing for her. Why did you use working overtime as an excuse to spend Valentine's Day with her? Why did you hug her and kiss her? Gu Jing's face also turned ugly. I smiled. Are you wondering why I know all this so clearly? It was your son who told me. The first time I heard the name Zhou Tian was from Gu Shirbai. Suddenly, one day, he started frequently telling me how nice Aunt Zhou is, what Aunt Zhou and Dad did together again. Mom, why can't you be as nice as Aunt Zhou? At first, he might have said these things unintentionally, but later, he was clearly doing it on purpose. As I said, he was precocious. After noticing that I would feel sad every time I heard the name Zhou Tian, whenever I did something that displeased him, he would deliberately bring up Zhou Tian. I knew he liked Zhou Tian and those video games, but it's not certain that he really wanted her to be his mother. He just took pleasure in using the revelation of his father's intimacy with another woman as a way to punish me and confront me, especially after I had Wei Wei in my previous life. His behavior became even more excessive. During my pregnancy, he would casually say, "Mom is fat and ugly, she's not as thin and pretty as Aunt Zhou." During my lactation period, he would nonchalantly say, "Mom's belly is so flabby with so many stretch marks, her clothes are so messy, stained with milk. And she smells of milk, it's so disgusting, no wonder Dad sleeps in a separate room from you." When I was accompanying Wei Wei during her surgery and hospitalization, he would often tell me that Gu Jing gave Zhou Tian this today and accompanied her to do that tomorrow. He would excitedly tell me how amazing Zhou Tian was, that she designed a new game again, and that he had a new game to play, unlike me who was so useless. After returning from a business trip with Gu Jing, he would tell me where he, Gu Jing, and Zhou Tian went and what they played. He said that others thought they were a family of three. He would show me the photos taken of the three of them in a boastful manner and ask me if they were well taken. He thought he was hiding his true feelings well, but every time he said these things, I could clearly see the malice in his eyes. I first experienced the innocent malice of a child from my own son. He was like a devil. repeating the incantation that drove me crazy in my ear every day. I knew that at that time, many nosy relatives and friends would maliciously provoke him, saying that with the second child, I would only love Wei Wei and not love him anymore. I also asked myself whether I was really biased between him and Wei Wei, which led to his wayward behavior, but after much thought, I was sure that I wasn't, even though I was constantly shuttling between the hospital and home for Wei Wei. I would ask Gu Shibai about his well-being every day, carefully inquire with the nanny whether he ate properly, and help him check his homework. Unless Wei Wei was having surgery, I would attend his parent-teacher meetings, even if I hadn't slept for 48 hours in the hospital and was extremely exhausted. In fact, before Wei Wei was born, he didn't like my company. He always thought I was nagging and annoying, that I had nothing better to do than to hover around him. He preferred to stay alone in his room playing games, but when I stopped focusing on him and spent the attention and time he didn't want on his sister, he got upset. He could reject and not cherish it, but I wasn't allowed to give it to anyone else. 13. I didn't know who he inherited this selfish trait from. It wasn't until after I was reborn and left Gu Jing without hesitation, yet he shamelessly came to reconcile, that I was sure he was like his father, the man who, when I was exhausted by Wei Wei's illness and my heart was broken by Gu Shibai's constant intentional provocations, was busy having an affair and figuring out how to divorce me. Didn't I want to get a divorce too? I'm not a masochist, nor am I infatuated to the point of not being able to live without Gu Jing, but for Wei Wei's sake, I couldn't. The cost of Wei Wei's treatment couldn't be afforded by an ordinary income. However, if I divorced and left Wei Wei with Gu Jing, given his attitude of preferring to spend time with Zhou Tian rather than visiting Wei Wei in the hospital, I couldn't rest assured. Moreover, Wei Wei's heart condition might not be able to withstand the shock of a family accident, so I could only grit my teeth and hold on. I often wondered why Gu Jing could love Gu Shibai but not Wei Wei. Wei Wei was so beautiful and well-behaved, facing the pain of illness and countless surgeries. She would endure until she couldn't bear it anymore before crying. Even when she was scared being alone with the nurse in the hospital, she would always urge me to get more rest. She missed her father and brother, confused as to why they never came to see her, but she never asked or complained. At such a young age, she was heartbreakingly sensible. It wasn't until after Wei Wei died that I saw the long-prepared divorce agreement in his study. Then I understood that her existence prevented him from proposing divorce to me. A man who proposed divorce to his wife while his daughter was on the verge of death. He knew how much public outcry he and Zhou Tian would face. He couldn't afford to lose that face. Since he couldn't get rid of me, he took his anger out on Wei Wei. Gu Shibai saw how indifferent Gu Jing was to Wei Wei and followed suit. Even though Wei Wei liked him as a brother, he didn't want to stay in the hospital a little longer to accompany his poor sister. Even when I forced him to come sometimes, he would just sit there with his head down, playing games, and ignore Wei Wei when she talked to him. Even worse, when I wasn't around, he would deliberately provoke Wei Wei, just like he did to me. 14. The day Wei Wei passed away was her 5th birthday. I specifically called Gu Jing and begged him to come home in the evening so that our family of 4 could celebrate Wei Wei's birthday properly. The birthday gift I prepared for Wei Wei was a painting. It was the same one that I painted again after being reborn and hung in the children's room, but was later destroyed by Gu Shibai. I was holding her and sitting on the bay window. Outside the window was the blue sea and rows of windmills. The golden sunlight fell on her face, covering up her sickly pallor. Wei Wei loved it and kept it by her side, looking at it from time to time, but until it was time to light the candles on the cake. Gu Jing still hadn't come back. I saw the disappointment in Wei Wei's eyes. I went to the kitchen to call Gu Jing, but no one answered no matter how many times I called. When I returned to the living room, still thinking about how to explain to Wei Wei why her father was absent from her birthday, I heard the 11-year-old Gu Shibai looking at the painting with contempt and disdain, saying viciously, "It's so ugly. Her face is as white as a ghost. In our school, a girl as ugly as you would only be hated. No wonder Dad doesn't want to celebrate your birthday with you." Wei Wei's face turned deathly pale. I could hardly believe my ears. Had Gu Shibai been speaking to Wei Wei so meanly when I wasn't around? In all these years, I had never laid a hand on Gu Shibai, but this time, I couldn't control myself and slapped him, holding his cheek. He looked at me in shock and shouted at me angrily, "Dad went on a date with Aunt Zhou. He won't come back to celebrate this sickly girl's birthday. It's no use how many times you call. From now on, I won't celebrate her birthday either. Dad will divorce you, marry Aunt Zhou, and I'll be with them as a family of 3. I don't want this sickly girl." and I don't want you either. Weiwei collapsed on the spot, clutching her chest, when I carried her limp body into the ambulance that day. I desperately prayed that God would be merciful one more time, but after the doctor's rescue, I was still told that Weiwei's physical condition couldn't withstand another surgery, and they advised me to give up. Looking at the suffering Weiwei in the hospital bed, my mind went blank, and I felt extremely lost. I kept calling Gu Jing, but he never answered. Later, I found out that he was in Zhou Tian's bed. In the end, I signed the consent form to give up treatment alone and watched as the doctor removed Weiwei's oxygen tube and turned off all the medical equipment. Gu Jing was the last one to arrive at the hospital. Even Gu Jing's parents and the funeral home staff had already arrived by the time he rushed in. He questioned me, asking why I didn't wait for him and why I had unilaterally given up treatment. I thought to myself, what was there to wait for him for? Wait for him to get out of his mistress's bed and come to Weiwei's bedside to put on an act of being a loving father, just to avoid being criticized for not being there when his daughter was on her deathbed. Should my Weiwei suffer a few more hours for the sake of his reputation? I looked at him and then at Gu Shirbai standing far outside the hospital room door. The expressions on their father-son faces were equally indifferent. One was busy having an affair while his biological daughter was on the verge of death, not even spending her last birthday with her. The other had maliciously provoked his own sister to death. Why could they be so calm? Why didn't they shed a single tear? I suddenly found the father-son pair terrifying. 15. I know these are all things that happened in my previous life. They haven't happened yet in this life, and they will never happen again. Perhaps I shouldn't judge the 6-year-old Gu Shirbai for crimes that haven't occurred in this life, but I can't help it. I gently pulled my hand away from Gu Shirbai's and smiled at Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin, you're wrong. The little girl in the painting isn't a dangerous presence for me. Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai are. If one day I go crazy or die, it will definitely be these two who push me towards madness and death. 16. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came for the third time, their attitudes became tough again. At that time, I was about to leave for Iceland. Just as I was pulling my suitcase to enter the elevator, I was stopped by Gu Jing, who came out of another elevator. He threatened me, Xinxia, if you still refuse to accept treatment from a psychologist, I'll have no choice but to force you into a psychiatric hospital. I looked at him mockingly. In what capacity do you plan to force me to be admitted? We're divorced, and you're not my guardian. We have no relationship left. Ex-husband, Gu Shirbai interrupted. Well, can't I do it then? I'm your son. I looked down at him. Too bad you're still a minor. They were helpless against me. I turned to leave, but Gu Jing reached out to stop me again and accidentally tore the necklace around my neck. The necklace fell to the ground, and the cover of the pendant came off, revealing a small photo of Weiwei that I had printed and put inside. Gu Jing stared at the small portrait in a daze, and finally lost his temper. Since you decided to have an abortion on your own, you shouldn't regret it. I clenched the broken necklace tightly with my trembling hands, refusing to show any weakness, and slapped him in return. He understood nothing. He knew nothing. After being reborn, I also hesitated and struggled, but at the end of my previous life, Weiwei lay in the hospital bed, crying and saying to me, Mom, I feel so rotten, it hurts so much. If there's a next life, can I not be born into this world? I really couldn't help it. I put the broken necklace in my pocket. Without looking at Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai again, pulled my suitcase, and entered the elevator. 17. In winter, Iceland exudes an extreme sense of desolation. The surging waves crash against the black sand beach, and the dark sand formed by lava contrasts sharply with the white waves, waterfalls, volcanoes, glaciers, fjords. This small island boasts a variety of unique landforms and wonderful landscapes. Due to its proximity to the Arctic Circle, the daylight hours in winter are very short. The sun hovers near the horizon, and the morning glow seamlessly connects to the evening glow. The pink-purple belt of Venus in the sky can last for a long time. When I came, I brought a lot of expensive photography equipment. After landing at Keflavik Airport, I rented a car and planned to drive around the island to chase the aurora borealis. Unfortunately, either the aurora KP index was below 1 on clear days, or the weather was too bad with thick clouds, and I failed to capture any photos of the aurora. On the last day of my trip, the weather forecast predicted a blizzard the next evening, and the roads might be closed for several days. I had to give up the remaining itinerary. I was unwilling to leave without capturing the aurora, although the aurora KP index was still only 1 that day. Since the weather seemed clear, I decided to drive out at night and take a chance. I found an open wasteland in the wild and waited in the car until 3 a.m. But still saw nothing. Finally, I was disheartened and decided to give up, but sometimes, fate likes to play jokes. Just as I started the car to leave, the aurora appeared, the green light bands danced in the sky, flickering on and off, changing unpredictably, both magnificent and mysterious. I quickly grabbed my photography equipment, found the best vantage point, and set it up to record this gift from nature, in the temperature of more than 10 degrees below zero. I couldn't stand the cold after watching the aurora for a while, so I decided to take a nap in the car and let the equipment continue shooting automatically. The necklace that Gu Jing tore was hanging on the rearview mirror of the car, and Wei Wei in the pendant was smiling at me. Looking at her face, I also smiled. Wei Wei, look, Mom has brought you to see the aurora. 18. I lay in the car, looking at the dancing aurora outside the window, and it took a long time for me to fall asleep. As a result, I woke up a bit late, and it was already dawn. A strong wind had started blowing outside the car. The place where I set up my photography equipment was a bit far from the roadside where I parked. The swirling snow reduced visibility, and I couldn't even see the equipment clearly from inside the car. I calculated the time it would take to drive back to Akureyri, considering the blizzard that was supposed to come in the evening. I got out of the car and braved the wind and snow to collect my equipment. At that time, I didn't know that the blizzard time predicted by the Icelandic weather forecast wasn't always accurate, and it was common for it to arrive earlier or later than expected. When I reached the place where I set up the equipment, I found that both tripods had been blown over, and one of the cameras was nowhere to be found, blown away by the wind. I groped around in the snow, which was several times thicker than last night, for a long time before I found the broken camera. Fearing that the melting snow would damage the SD card, I quickly took out the SD cards from both cameras and put them in my pocket separately. When I finished packing my equipment and started walking back, the world around me was a sea of white, and the visibility was less than 5 meters. The car key for the vehicle I rented didn't have a car finding button. I could only carry the heavy cameras and tripods and try to make my way back to the car based on my sense of direction. I walked for a long time, much farther than the actual distance from where I set up the equipment to the car, before I realized that I had lost my way in the early arriving blizzard. I tried to figure out my direction, but I was exhausted. In the end, I had to abandon the heavy cameras and tripods, yet I still couldn't find the car. I took out my phone to call for rescue, only to find that there was no signal. I was left to search blindly in the howling blizzard alone. The raging storm grew more and more intense. The biting wind, carrying snowflakes, made it impossible for me to open my eyes. I walked slower and slower, feeling my body gradually losing heat. My limbs grew so cold and numb that I could only move forward on instinct. Finally, I collapsed in the snow. I thought I was going to die in the blizzard of a foreign land, but I wasn't afraid. Instead, I felt a sense of relief. I said in my heart, "Sorry, Wei Wei, Mom didn't want to break her promise to you, but I really can't hold on anymore." In fact, Dr. Lin was right. I was indeed ill, and I had been tempting death. 19. After Wei Wei died in my previous life, I suffered from severe depression, or perhaps I had already been ill since I discovered Gu Jing's infidelity, since Gu Shibai constantly provoked me, and since I accompanied Wei Wei through countless surgeries and hospitalizations. Every day, the world seemed gray to me, and everything around me was full of malice. My husband and son were so cold-hearted, and my daughter was so pitiful. I struggled desperately, exhausting myself every day, yet I still couldn't see a way forward or a glimmer of hope. But for Wei Wei's sake, I gritted my teeth and persevered, pretending that everything was fine in front of her, not letting her discover the cracks in the family or the ugly truth about her father and brother. Until Wei Wei's death, all the suppressed negative emotions suddenly erupted, swallowing me up like an abyss. On one hand, I told myself not to die because I had promised Wei Wei that I would live well even if she was gone. On the other hand, I couldn't stop hurting myself. At first, Gu Jing and Gu Shibai did feel guilty. They tried to hide their true feelings, but they couldn't have been completely indifferent to Wei Wei's death. People are sometimes so contradictory. They tried to escape their sins while also feeling compelled to feel guilty and make amends. They pretended that everything was fine in front of me, just as I had done before. Gu Jing stopped seeing Zhou Tian, and Gu Shibai stopped saying hurtful things to me. They pretended that we were a happy family of 3, but it didn't help me at all. I always remembered the identical cold looks in their eyes when they were by Wei Wei's bedside, no matter how much they smiled at me or how gentle they were. In my eyes, they were still heartless, terrifying, and loathsome, the most detestable monsters in the world. The closer they got to me, the worse my condition became. I couldn't control my crying in the middle of the night, my outbursts of temper, or my self-harm. Soon, they began to lose patience. Thinking I was an embarrassment and a burden, they reverted to their old ways. Gu Jing started staying out late again, and Gu Shirbai began his sarcastic remarks once more. The day I climbed to the rooftop of the 37th floor, Gu Shirbai shouted at me with a look of disgust. "It's all your fault that Gu Shirwei died. It has nothing to do with anyone else. There's no genetic disease in our family. If you had given her a healthy body, she wouldn't have gotten sick and died." I stood on the edge of the rooftop, stunned. Was it really my fault? It must have been something I didn't pay attention to during pregnancy that caused Wei Wei to have a heart condition and suffer in this world. The thin thread that had been holding me back from death snapped at that moment, and I jumped off the 37th floor. 20. Depression doesn't heal on its own after being reborn. Even though I got a second chance at life, those negative emotions were still there. On the day of the abortion, I even hoped that I would bleed to death on the operating table and leave this world with Wei Wei, but I dreamed of her. She always begged me not to die, crying. I didn't want to let her down. That day, when I got home, I saw Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai still living their lives without a care. They understood nothing, they knew nothing. Only I knew everything that happened in the previous life, only I carried all the pain, and only I remembered their sins and their hideous appearances. So I fled from those two monsters, Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai, but it wasn't enough. Those negative emotions persisted, as did the pain and the sense of guilt. I didn't want to break my promise to Wei Wei, so I clung to the memory of her, constantly reminding myself of the promise I made to her and struggling against depression. That's why I decorated a children's room for her, pretending that she was with me. That's why I painted so many portraits of her, almost obsessively. That's why I traveled the world, seeing the sights for her. I tried my best to pretend that everything had changed and was getting better. I tried to pretend that I was getting rid of those negative emotions, but I still couldn't stop tempting death time and time again. Every time I engaged in those high-risk activities, I lied to myself that it was what Wei Wei wanted, but in fact, it was what I wanted. Now, the death I had long anticipated had finally come. I felt at peace in the whiteout of the blizzard. Slowly, I closed my eyes. 21. Beep, 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 beep. Suddenly, the continuous honking of a car horn pierced through the blizzard where the visibility was zero. The harsh sound cut through the wind and snow and reached my ears persistently, irritating me so much that I felt annoyed. I struggled with the dark and negative thoughts in my mind for a long time amidst the unceasing car horns. I really wanted to give up. I really wanted to give up. But then I thought of Wei Wei. Finally, I opened my eyes, struggled to get up from the snow, and found the tripod that I had discarded earlier. To my surprise, I realized that I had been walking in circles, using the tripod as a crutch. With my almost frozen limbs, I crawled towards the direction of the car horn with all my might. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. When I finally found the car, I realized that it hadn't been far from me at all, at most 100 meters away. How should I describe the miraculous scene I saw when I opened the car door? Shivering, no matter how many times I thought about it later, I believed that it was Wei Wei's spirit that saved me in the deadly blizzard and guided me to safety, because it was simply impossible. The heavy tripod I had placed on the passenger seat, perhaps due to the blizzard shaking the car, had toppled towards the driver's seat. The necklace I had hung on the rearview mirror somehow fell and wrapped around the tripod, pressing down on the horn. In the continuous honking, Wei Wei and the pendant smiled at me. At that moment, tears streamed down my face. Epilogue. After getting back in the car that day, my phone regained signal. I called for rescue, and half an hour later, Icelandic rescue workers arrived and took me to a local hospital for examination. Fortunately, my frostbite wasn't too severe, and I returned to China after a few days in the hospital. After experiencing that blizzard, my depression seemed to heal suddenly. I had always known that this coastal town was beautiful, but during the year I lived there, I had been living numbly, feeling nothing. Even though I traveled a lot, I couldn't really appreciate any of the beautiful scenery. But after coming back from Iceland, I suddenly felt that everything was different. The huge windmills in the distance turned leisurely. The blue sea gently washed the golden beach, and the glow of the setting sun on the rusty old ship was so beautiful that it made people stop and stare. The world was no longer gray, it was filled with so much color. I still lived there, continued to paint, and traveled around, but I no longer deliberately engaged in dangerous activities. I started to get involved in new media, posting the paintings of Wei Wei and some of my travel photography works online, which attracted a lot of attention. Suddenly, I became a rising star painter and photographer with many fans. A year later, someone contacted me, wanting to hold an art exhibition for me, and I agreed. The theme of the exhibition was An Angel Once Came. All the works on display were portraits of Wei Wei. Surprisingly, a large number of people came to the opening day, including Gu Jing and Gu Shibai, although I didn't care much. They had actually been harassing me. After realizing that they couldn't force me to accept psychological treatment, Gu Jing changed his approach. In both the previous life and this life, during our marriage, he had never given me flowers or any surprises. Now, he was actually trying to use this method to tempt me into remarrying him. I scoffed at his efforts. As for Gu Shibai, every time he saw me buying things for Wei Wei, he was extremely jealous. When I loved him before, he seemed to prefer video games, but now, no matter how many games Zhou Tian gave him, he would just tell her to leave. Gu Jing had also fired her. Now, it seemed that he wanted my motherly love more than video games. He cried and said to me, "Mom, I'm your real son, why don't you even look at me? But you're so good to the daughter you imagined." They suddenly stopped bothering me a week ago. I thought they had finally gotten tired and given up, but now, they showed up at my art exhibition. Seeing the wary look on my face, Gu Jing gave a bitter smile. "You don't have to be like this, we're not here to cause trouble." He stared at the nearest painting, Wei Wei smiling like an angel in the blizzard. Gu Jing's eyes suddenly welled up with tears. "Xinxia, I've been having the same dream lately, dreaming that we have a daughter named Gu Shiwei." With his eyes red from crying, Gu Shibai also looked at me and asked, "Mom, I had the same dream, is it true?" I looked at the father-son pair coldly and said nothing. That day, Gu Jing and Gu Shibai, with red-rimmed eyes, carefully looked at every painting in the exhibition. The last painting covered an entire wall. Under the magnificent aurora in Iceland, Wei Wei grew white wings and flew towards the sky. She was my angel, and she had once been here. Gu Jing and Gu Shibai stood in front of the painting for a long time. After that, they never appeared in my life again. Extra chapter. When Gu Shibai was 11 years old, Xinxia remarried and soon had a daughter named Xiangyang. On the day Xiangyang was born, Gu Shibai climbed to the rooftop of the 37th floor, insisting on seeing Xinxia. Gu Jing looked at him impatiently and said, "Gu Shibai, stop making a scene." At that moment, both father and son froze. They both thought of that dream and the previous life. When Xinxia stood precariously in the wind on the 37th floor, they had also said to her, "Stop making a scene." The blood that splattered when Xinxia fell and the pallor of Gu Shiwei's death had been Gu Jing's lingering nightmares for years. Xinxia's assessment of him was right. He was a jerk. He had always thought that Xinxia was too dull, too quiet, and too unremarkable. She repeated the same things at home every day, wore similar clothes, and lived like a backdrop. It wasn't until after the divorce, when Xinxia left without looking back, that he realized his true feelings for her. She was like the silent rain that moistened everything, gradually seeping into every part of his life. Once she was gone, it was as if a huge void had suddenly opened up in his heart, impossible to fill. He would instinctively call her name when he couldn't find something. He would turn around, having the illusion that she was waiting for him behind him. One late night, when he reached out and found nothing beside him in his drowsy state, his longing for her suddenly overwhelmed him like a rampant virus, taking over all his rationality. He had to get her back. At that time, he understood nothing, he knew nothing. He thought he had hidden his affair with Zhou Tian well and that he could pretend nothing had happened. Since Xinxia loved him so much, she would surely come back to him without hesitation as long as he showed a little kindness. He didn't know that Gu Shibai had told Xinxia everything behind his back. He had no idea what he had done in the previous life. He couldn't understand why Xinxia looked at him with such cold, mocking eyes, as if he were something dirty. It wasn't until he had that dream. In the dream, after Xinxia's death in the previous life, he also came to his senses like he did now and finally realized his feelings for Xinxia. The guilt, heartache, and longing were so intense that they almost drove him crazy. He knew he had to do something, he had to take action, so he took revenge on Zhou Tian. He drove her out of the company, leaving her with no way out, drowning in debt, and eventually forcing her to sell her body. In the end, she contracted a venereal disease and came to him with a knife. As she insanely plunged the knife into his heart, she roared, "Did I force you to cheat? Did I force you to sleep with me? It's you, you're the one who's a jerk and can't control yourself. Why do you blame everything on me?" Yes, he was such a despicable person. Always eager to shift the blame and avoid the truth, just like he knew that Wei Wei's congenital heart disease was likely caused by Xinxia's emotional shock after discovering his infidelity during pregnancy, which led to Wei Wei's congenital deficiencies. But he didn't want to admit it, so he ignored Xinxia's pain and Wei Wei's illness, using his affair to numb himself. Even on the day Wei Wei died, he still didn't want to admit that he was wrong. He blamed Zhou Tian, claiming that it was her soft and fragrant body that held him back, and that it was she who secretly set his phone to silent, causing him to miss Xinxia's calls and thus miss Wei Wei's last birthday. He blamed Xinxia, saying that it was she who signed the consent form to give up treatment without authorization, and that it was she who prematurely ended Wei Wei's life, preventing him from seeing her for the last time. It was all their fault. He was blameless. He had always distorted the truth and told himself this, so Xinxia was right. He was a terrifying monster, repulsive and unrepentant. He deserved to fail in winning back Xinxia's love. He was unworthy of it. He no longer dared to see her. In fact, he didn't really want to give up on Xinxia. He still wanted to keep pestering her, but he was afraid of her cold gaze, which reflected all his darkness and laid bare all his dirt. So over the years, he had restrained himself and also kept an eye on Gu Shirbai, preventing both of them from disturbing Xinxia. In truth, he also blamed Gu Shirbai, resenting him for provoking Wei Wei to death in the previous life and for driving Xinxia to her end. Even though he had never properly guided Gu Shirbai or stopped his bad behavior, he could deceive himself into believing that he was not at fault and that it was all the fault of the 11-year-old Gu Shirbai in the previous life. After Xinxia's death, Gu Shirbai himself suffered from severe depression. Xinxia was spot on when she said that Gu Shirbai's bad traits were just like his. Just as he only repented after Xinxia's death, Gu Shirbai only realized how much he loved the mother he had been mentally abusing after her death. Gu Shirbai began to cry uncontrollably for no apparent reason, lose his temper for trivial reasons, and harm himself if not watched closely, just as Xinxia had done before. And Gu Jing watched all this coldly, with no intention of intervening. In the previous life, Gu Jing had no idea what became of Gu Shirbai after his own death. However, in this life, after having the same dream about the previous life as Gu Jing, Gu Shirbai suffered from the same severe depression as before. He would often cry and beg to see Xinxia, clutching his chest and asking Gu Jing, "Dad, my heart hurts so much. Do I have a heart disease like my sister? If I have a heart disease too, will Mom and my sister forgive me?" But every time he went to the hospital for an examination, the results showed that everything was normal. When he got a bit older and understood what a psychological effect was, he stopped asking Gu Jing this question, but he still clamored to see Xinxia. Since he was under Gu Jing's watch, he could only spy on every aspect of Xinxia's life through the internet and other people. After discovering that Xinxia had a new boyfriend, he began to provoke Gu Jing just as he had once provoked Xinxia. He would deliberately tell Gu Jing where Xinxia had gone to play with that man, that Xinxia had received gifts from him, that Xinxia had kissed him, and that Xinxia had accepted his proposal. Xinxia was getting married, he repeatedly told Gu Jing, without growing tired of it, how happy Xinxia was after leaving them. He was punishing himself while also tormenting Gu Jing, through the repeated heartache. Gu Jing finally understood how Xinxia had felt when facing Gu Shirbai, and he finally grasped why Xinxia had been so determined to abandon this son. He was just like him, a detestable demon. On the day he learned that Xinxia was getting married, Gu Jing almost went crazy. He desperately wanted to rush to her, grab her, and ask how she could get married, how she could fall in love with someone else, and whether she had forgotten about Wei Wei. But he held himself back and even sent a decent congratulatory gift, despite not being invited. When he learned that she was pregnant and had a daughter, although Gu Jing was heartbroken, he was no longer as agitated. On the contrary, Gu Shirbai threw a huge tantrum. But on that day on the rooftop of the 37th floor, after both father and son were stunned by the words "Stop making a scene" that blurted out, Gu Shirbai came down from the rooftop on his own and never mentioned wanting to see Xinxia again. They looked through Xinxia's Weibo together. A fan asked her why, after painting so many portraits of Wei Wei, she named her daughter Xiangyang instead of Wei Wei. She replied, "Wei Wei is Wei Wei, and Xiangyang is Xiangyang." Others might not understand, but Gu Jing and Gu Shibai did. Xiangyang was not a substitute for Wei Wei, nor was she there to fill the void left by Wei Wei. Xinxia was a great mother, and she had never shown favoritism to any child. Later, Gu Jing invested half of his fortune in charity and established a children's cardiovascular disease charity foundation. As Gu Shibai grew older, he often reminisced about his despicable self in the dream of the previous life. In fact, although he liked video games and Zhou Tian, who could design games, he had never really wanted Zhou Tian to be his mother. At first, he just wanted to use this way to rebel against Xinxia's control over him. Later, he simply hated that most of Xinxia's attention was taken up by Gu Shiwei. He was afraid that Xinxia would really stop loving him once she had a daughter. Just as others had said, the 11-year-old him in the previous life probably knew that his actions of deliberately provoking Xinxia and Wei Wei were wrong, and he didn't really want them to die, but once malicious words became a habit, they just slipped out, so he became very silent. Half a year after settling in the coastal town, I received a call from Gu Jing, asking me why. Both he and Gu Shibai were trying to atone for their sins in their own ways. Many years later, Gu Shibai finally became a qualified pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon. He almost lived in the hospital every day, either examining patients or performing surgeries. He exhausted himself desperately. As if only by curing more children could he wash away the guilt in his heart. Later, he met a 5-year-old girl. She was beautiful and well-behaved, and she had the same congenital heart disease as Wei Wei. Gu Shibai was her chief surgeon. The day of the surgery was the girl's birthday. The operation lasted 20 hours and was a complete success. Gu Shibai walked out of the operating room with a smile, utterly exhausted, and then collapsed. He suffered cardiac arrest and passed away with a smile on his face. Story 2. After my death, 80-year-old Shen Hezhi married his 78-year-old first love. That day, the finance professor who had been aloof and cold all his life showed a rare, indulgent smile. I am grateful to the years. I have finally married the girl I liked when I was young. Lovers who had been separated for over half a century finally reunited, their joy moving heaven and earth. Yet I, who had accompanied him throughout his life, was his original partner whose name left no trace. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself sitting on the cold floor, dressed in a provocative outfit, with his back turned to me. Shen Hezhi's voice was as indifferent as a cloud. Jianan, if this is really so important to you, we should just get a divorce. The child can stay with me. It won't affect your dating. 01. I stared blankly at his back. This familiar scene had also occurred in my past life. Back then, I was flushed with shame and indignation. I had stripped down and thrown myself at him. But Shen Hezhi was utterly unmoved by my feelings, angered and resentful at his cold-heartedness. He even thought of taking away my son, whom I had raised through hardships. Let's divorce then. But Ru Jing stays with me. I'll just never date again, I cried out. I didn't want to end up being looked down upon by Shen Hezhi over such matters. Shen Hezhi turned around and gently wiped the tears and snot all over my face. Jianan, stop it. How can I be assured and let you and our daughter go like this? He was always like this, heartless yet tender. I hated his cold aloofness, but I couldn't let go of his gentle and refined side. My wailing grew even louder. He shook his head helplessly and sighed deeply. Ning Ning. Why don't you believe that none of this will affect my feelings for you? I naturally didn't believe him. But facing Shen Hezhi's clear and sincere eyes, I couldn't help but wonder if I was indeed asking for too much. People are varied. Shen Hezhi, like a flower on a high ridge, probably just wasn't into this kind of thing. Enough is enough. With Ru Jing, I really didn't want to look any further. It was better to just be with Shen Hezhi. At least his face was pleasing to look at. Thinking this way, my desire for a divorce gradually faded, so I fiercely grabbed his collar, eyes nearly bursting. I warned him word by word, Shen Hezhi, from now on, you better pray I don't find out you have a mistress. He was stunned, then couldn't help but laugh. You, really, say it, I said sternly. All right, if I betray you, may I be ruined and leave without a penny. All right. Only then did I break into laughter. Leaving without a penny didn't matter. Everyone knew that Shen Hezhi, as a financial genius and the youngest professor, was a gentleman of integrity who valued his reputation above all. The storm passed. He pointed at the stewardess outfit I was wearing and gently shook his head, clearly disapproving. I scrambled onto the bed, diving under the covers, my face burning up. Actually, I never really intended to do anything. I was just curious and couldn't resist trying. Shen Hezhi's deep eyes twinkled with a hint of a smile. I understand. What do you understand? I muttered, clutching the corner of the blanket. He suddenly leaned in close and whispered, I understand that our Ning Ning is very innocent, right? I let out a gasp, entirely wrapped in my blanket. I kept yelling for him to leave. The door closed gently, with a click, along with my restless, eager heart. It was completely locked away, yet I still harbored fantasies that one day, Shen Heji, as wonderful as he was, would fall in love with me. But it wasn't until I was old and lying on my sickbed, when he visited me with Lu Yanjing. His hair now silver, confident and elegant, did I realize I was wrong, terribly wrong. On my deathbed, I looked at Shen Heji, old Shen, I can no longer deceive myself into thinking that my life was just a failed conquest. I am truly a pitiful person. He held my hand, tears falling, acknowledging silently, you've made my life so difficult. Tears of humiliation clouded my vision. If there is a next life, I definitely do not want to live like this. Fortunately, heaven took pity and gave me another chance. Fine, let's divorce. You can keep Rujing, I said coolly as I got up. Shen Heji's proud back stiffened, and he slowly turned around, frowning. Ning Ning, stop this nonsense. Rujing has a professor for a father. His future won't be bleak. His eyebrows furrowed slightly as he assessed me. Then he came over and gently embraced me. Ning Ning, Rujing is your son. I know how much you've invested in him. I won't fight with you for him. Professor Shen is mistaken. I'm still a maiden. I don't have a son. I hope after the divorce, you can clarify this. I pushed him away, responding with a cold laugh. In my past life, for the sake of Shen Heji's reputation, I remained a widow all my life. I also acknowledged the adopted Shen Rujing as our biological son, all for the sake of one day turning this illusion of a happy family into reality, even in the long, tedious marriage, when I couldn't warm Shen Heji's heart. I gradually shifted my efforts to raising Shen Rujing, finding a new purpose, but I never expected Shen Heji and his son to be so ruthless. They deceived me thoroughly, leaving me with nothing, even wanting to consume all I had. I remembered it even in death. In my previous life, after I learned of Lu Yanjing's existence, I called Shen Rujing into the ICU alone, emphasizing over and over. He had to ensure my divorce from Shen Heji was finalized before I closed my eyes. I wanted to clear my ties with him before I left. I didn't want to still be known as his wife after my death. I found it repulsive. I thought that this son, whom I raised and nurtured into a talented man, would understand me and fulfill my final wish. I gripped his hand firmly, filled with hope. Also, Rujing, you must personally cremate me and bury me in the Jiang family ancestral grave. Mom, you're so ill. Don't think too much. Shen Rujing listened silently, his expression troubled. Whether it's the divorce or not letting Dad handle your funeral, it will only make outsiders laugh at our family. My eyes widened. He looked at me helplessly, as if seeing a child throwing a tantrum. Both Dad and Aunt Lu are old. They want to spend their last moments with the ones they love. Let them settle this one regret. After all, because of you, they wasted their entire lives. Is this still my son? I can't believe it. So I widened my eyes and looked carefully, now middle-aged. He wore gold-rimmed glasses just like Shenhe in his youth, and the more I looked, the more their eyes and brows resembled each other. In his cool and gentle demeanor, there was a hint of aloofness. Perhaps it was a moment of lucidity, but suddenly, a ludicrous and bold thought popped into my head. Rujing, you. I gasped heavily. Ha ha ha, why on earth this nonsense? Nonsense indeed. So his son with his lover has grown up this much. The machines connected to my body started to emit a sharp alarm. Shen Rujing panicked and stood up to call for a doctor, but the ones who came in were Lu Yanjing and Shenhe. Mom, what are you doing here? He turned and instinctively exclaimed. It came out so naturally and familiarly. Lu Yanjing, ignoring the resistance from father and son, walked straight towards me. She sat by my bed, took my withered hand, and spoke calmly. Jianan, I know you have many questions. You've raised Rujing so well, I definitely had to thank you personally. Yanjing, Rujing, my gaze wandered over the three faces. So that's how it is. Lu Yanjing smoothed her white temples, authoritative. You've spent your life doing good deeds. There's no need to make everyone look bad now, is there? Shen Rujing mumbled and lowered his head, chiming in. Mom, think about your son too. My promotion evaluation is next month. Shenhe, feeling guilty, looked away. A man who had been upright all his life now couldn't even look me in the eye. Good. You're all so wonderful. After a while, coming to terms with it, I pounded the bed and laughed bitterly. My life, Jianan, from beginning to end, was spent making wedding clothes for others. Even in death, I'm being manipulated by others. My death was silent, and my life details were deliberately obscured. The public only remembers the renowned finance expert Shen He, who, after becoming a widower, reunited with his first love. This couple, separated for 60 years, finally tied the knot in the last stage of their lives, with no regrets and time well spent. The whole world cheered and celebrated for them, while I, who accompanied Shen He for a lifetime and devoted my life to him, was merely a footnote in their love story, not even worthy of a mention by name. Occasionally when people mentioned me, they said I almost made them miss out on a lifetime together, after I agreed to the divorce. Shen He said the same thing he did in his past life. Ning Ning, why don't you believe that whether or not this is true, it won't affect my feelings for you? I believed my grandmother's ghost. My indifference gave Shen He quite a headache. Ning Ning, divorce is not a joke. Let's not make decisions in anger. He turned and left, giving me the cold shoulder, confident that eventually I would come around. At 4:30 in the morning, my alarm rang. I sneered, turned it off and deleted the whole chain. Then continued to sleep soundly. Mom, I want to eat the braised beef noodles you make. You haven't kneaded the dough yet. I'm going to be late. Shen Rujing knocked on my door. His intelligence was not fully inherited from Shen He, but his fussy and fastidious character was exactly like him. From a young age, he insisted on only eating meals prepared by me. Go find your dad, I said, pulling the blanket over my head. He paused for a moment, then closed the door firmly behind him. After a good night's sleep, I woke up radiant and carefully applied my makeup before making a long overdue phone call. Fu Yuyan, I heard you've returned to start a business and even got a celebrity girlfriend, something like Lu Yan, right? After my rebirth, I immediately looked into Lu Yanjing. As a popular idol, her information was easy to find. Online sources mentioned she was about to star in a big-budget film, supported by mysterious financial backers, essentially bringing capital to the production team. Before I died, I overheard from nurses that Lu Yanjing had married an overseas businessman, Fu Yuyan. Fu Yuyan passed away 3 years ago due to illness, leaving no children behind. That simplifies things. Unknown to many, I was adopted by the Fu family at the age of 12 and called Fu Yuyan brother for a year, because he had confessed to me, and I later fell for Shen Heji. I wanted to avoid endless complications and decided to completely cut ties with the Fu family. Who would have thought? By missing this connection, we ended up as the early departed original partners of Shen Heji and Lu Yanjing. When I met Fu Yuyan, I got straight to the point. I want a divorce. It could create a scandal that might ruin your girlfriend's public image, so maybe reconsider if you really want to support her. Afterwards, I left all household chores behind and focused on painting in my best friend's gallery. I had lived a life of frustration and died with regrets. Now, I channeled all that energy into my paintings. When Shen Heji found me, I was holding a palette of oil paints, my hands full of brushes, my body smeared with various colors of paint, looking like a dirty mason. This caused Shen Heji, who was a stickler for cleanliness, to frown. Seeing that I had no intention of coming out, he stepped inside. Ning Ning, do you know Fu Yuyan? His withdrawal from the movie Promotion City, was that because of you? Fu Yuyan, true to being a businessman, acted swiftly and decisively. I continued with my painting. Oh, does Professor Shen also keep up with the entertainment industry? Shen Heji was silent for a while before carefully replying. The lead actress's agent approached me. This movie is very important to them. I didn't believe him. What is Lu Yanjing to you? Shen Heji adjusted his glasses and said helplessly, Ning Ning, I don't actually know her. It's just, Shen Heji, what do you think of this painting? I suddenly put down my brush and stepped aside. The large canvas depicted a fiery sunset illuminating a desolate mountain path in red. A simple woman was carrying 2 heavy baskets along the fiery red mountain path. Ning Ning, you know I don't understand art. Promotion City, this movie. My fingers traced the baskets as I spoke for myself. Do you know what she's carrying? It's charcoal. I turned to look at him, my smile cold. The sun is about to set, the stones underfoot will cool down, but if she's carrying charcoal, she can use the sunset to keep paving the fiery road, burning endlessly. Charcoal can't possibly be this heavy, nor can the sunlight ignite it. That's simply not plausible. So, this is just a lie to deceive women. The sun must set, and the path ahead must darken. The foolish woman in the painting is me from a past life. I viewed Shen Heji as the sun I was chasing, and Shen Rujing as the charcoal in the basket, my remaining hope, always deceived by lies, carrying the weight I moved forward, I stared intently at the painting, then suddenly, with a fierce motion, I grabbed the bucket of paint from the ground and hurled it at the canvas. Paint splattered everywhere. The painting I had meticulously worked on for 3 days turned into a thick curtain of black. It was a mourning for the foolish and stubborn me of the past life. All lies are untenable, just like you could never truly love me, I suddenly shouted, gasping for breath and glaring at him. I request that Professor Shen agrees to a divorce. Don't settle. I, Jianan, am never without options. Shen Heji was visibly shaken, his expression a mix of surprise and a hint of fear. Other options? Are you referring to Fu Yuyan? He asked, his lips quivering. In that moment, he seemed to finally understand that my resolve to divorce was real. 2 days later, Lu Yanjing and her agent came directly to my door. Upon entering, she looked around with her neck held high. Her demeanor was as if she was surveying her own fiefdom. The young Lu Yanjing was indeed attractive, but her condescending attitude, looking down on others as if they were mere ants, was exactly the same as when she was older. It showed how comfortable and smooth her life had been. Shen Heji courteously invited them to sit, taking the initiative to introduce us to each other. The once proud and talented professor, unblemished by the world, was now willing to play the obsequious mediator for the sake of his beloved. Mrs. Shen, what is your relationship with Yuyan? Lu Yanjing sat down with reserve, putting on airs. Oh, asking for favors yet not forgetting to maintain her stature. He once admired me. To him, I might be his first love, his unattainable love. I carefully observed her, responding deliberately and slowly. Her expression changed slightly. Shen Heji, who was serving tea, suddenly paused and looked at me. Ning, why haven't you mentioned this before? A good ex should be like they are dead, right? Over the years, I've done quite well, haven't I? Shen Heji. The room fell silent, only the agent let out a slight hiss. Why then are you contacting him again and making things difficult for me? Lu Yanjing was displeased, tossing her bag onto the coffee table, the metal zipper clanking heavily against the glass surface, sharp and grating. Ah, truly assuming the role of the lady of the house. I glanced meaningfully at Shen Heji. I intentionally said, I heard he might be in a relationship. I wanted to see if he still can't stop thinking about me. If that's the case, oh, that would be problematic. Absolutely ridiculous. Jianan, you are already married, you even have an 8-year-old son. Lu Yanjing stood up, her white jade-like fingers pointing at me, visibly upset. I stood up and brushed her hand away unceremoniously, coldly saying, so what if I'm married? Can't I still think about my first love? You, not only think, I can also make him stay loyal to me in frustration. Are you biting me? Lu Yanjing finally realized something was wrong. A hint of panic flashed in his eyes as he instinctively turned to look at Shen Heji. The two exchanged a doubtful glance before quickly looking away. The manager was completely confused. Mrs. Shen, how can you say such things? Your husband and son are right here. It turned out that during our tense confrontation, Shen Rujing had come down from upstairs at some point, having overheard our conversation for who knows how long. He was in disbelief. Mom, have you fallen for another man? Is that why you've been ignoring me lately? Do you really not want me anymore? Lu Yanjing, frustrated, glared fiercely at Shen Heji. Shen Heji quickly stood up, trying to soothe his teenage son. Jinger, your mom is just upset with me. Please, go upstairs, we'll handle this. But Shen Rujing wouldn't listen, his gaze fixed on me, as if waiting for me to admit it myself. I pretended not to see, and casually sat back down. Oh, Jinger, how ironic. Choosing his name was just so I could openly call him Jinger. Ning, adults' issues shouldn't involve children, it's detrimental to Jinger's development. After coaxing his son downstairs, Shen Heji frowned and scolded me unhappily. How amusing. He could say that adult issues shouldn't involve children. So, should children's issues involve adults? Should a young woman in her prime, like me, pay for their passionate mistakes? Serving as a mere titular nanny, Lu Yanjing stood up in anger, grabbed her bag, and stormed out, bumping hard into Shen Heji's shoulder. Your wife really lacks manners, just a shallow, low-level woman. I don't believe Fu Yuyan would withdraw his investment because of her. Let's just wait and see, I said confidently behind her back. Miss Lu, I believe you. After all, who hasn't been someone's first love? If not Fu Yuyan, there's always another sucker. As soon as I finished speaking, Lu Yanjing almost tripped at the threshold. Practically fleeing in panic, I watched her leave, arm in arm, in silence. Unfortunately, her other sucker, Shen Heji, is currently just a professor trying to build his career in academia. His reputation for being young and good-looking surpasses his academic achievements. He's not reliable yet, otherwise, they wouldn't have had to painfully split up due to reality. Jianan. Fu Yuyan investing in Prompt City is a business move, beneficial for him. Why must you do this? Shen Heji sighed. His words full of sympathy for Lu Yanjing. I smiled faintly. Professor Shen, instead of criticizing me here, why don't you go to the financial world and persuade those business tycoons to lend Miss Lu a hand? His eyes behind the glasses suddenly narrowed, and he instinctively opened his mouth to ask me something, but ultimately, he lowered his eyes, sighed, and quietly walked away. I watched his retreating figure with a mocking look. Actually, my staging of today's drama was partly to vent my own frustrations and also to test the waters. If Shen Heji felt guilty and offered to divorce, if he gives me enough compensation, then I might consider him somewhat conscientious, but, it's truly disappointing, he still avoids the issue, pretends to be unaware, and is determined to exploit me, shearing me like a sheep. My best friend tapped on my forehead and said, why make it so complicated, just directly tell him you know Shen Rujing is their son. Shen Heji values his reputation, how could he cling to a sham marriage? She doesn't agree with my cautious approach, but she doesn't really understand Shen Heji. In my past life, he and Lu Yanjing schemed with all their might, concealing Shen Rujing's origins for decades without a whisper getting out. How could he tarnish his reputation as a professor just because of my words? Even if he doesn't care about himself, he would consider it for Lu Yanjing. Lu Yanjing, 27 this year, needs to transition from a pop idol to serious roles. This blockbuster film is crucial for her. It will determine whether she becomes an overnight sensation, establishing her career, or fades away as she ages and gets eliminated. Then there's the gossip with Fu Yunian. All these factors decide that she can't afford any scandals right now. Shen Heji loves her so much, how could he not consider these things? After getting a strand of Lu Yanjing's hair from Fu Yunian, I had all the biological samples I needed from their family. I rushed to get a paternity test done. On the way back, I received a call from Shen Heji asking me to come home early tonight. He decided to talk about the divorce, but what I didn't expect was that it was a trap. After 3 glasses of wine, I started feeling hot and an unfamiliar desire began to stir within me. Shen Heji came over to support me, wearing the silk white shirt I picked out for him, the top 3 buttons undone, revealing a glimpse of his chest as he leaned over. My throat was dry, and I couldn't take my eyes off him, until he helped me to the bed and began tremblingly to remove my coat. That's when I suddenly snapped back to reality. Shen Heji, did you drug me? Shen Heji stiffened. Get out, I yelled, pointing at the door, tears streaming down my face from the discomfort. He was flustered and whispered soothingly, Ning Ning, it's not what you think, you just had a bit too much to drink. I've thought this through, let's try to make it work, I'll support whatever you want to do. I slapped him hard. Shen Heji, do you think I'm that stupid in your eyes? Can't I tell the difference between drugs and alcohol? If I hadn't been reborn, I wouldn't have known. I would have thought I was finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. He was ready to sacrifice, and I was too moved to suspect anything wrong with the wine. Who are you trying to impress with this heroic, sacrificial act? I pointed at his nose and yelled, I've seen you bloated, balding with a beer belly, greasy enough to make someone sick. I also know how ugly you look with a face full of orange peel skin, smelling like an old man, covered in age spots, with sagging skin hanging over your belly. You think by slipping me some cheap drug, you can make me comply? That's really funny. Overwhelmed by the heat in my body, my words came out harsh and my thoughts scrambled. After the outburst, I pushed him away, shocked and embarrassed, and ran out of the house. It started raining halfway, and I ran desperately, the cold wind hitting my face. Running and running, I suddenly stopped, propped myself up on my knees, and laughed breathlessly. Jianan, you're right in your scolding, aren't you? Isn't it true? Without the filter of love, decades later, isn't Shen Heji exactly as bad and ugly as I described him? To hell with his gentlemanly demeanor, his noble character, and his brilliant talents. After standing in the rain for half an hour, I realized I really had a fever, so I called Fu Yunyan. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital with an 4 in my arm. Jianan, what are you and your husband up to? Fu Yunyan looked displeased as he handed his phone to me. It was his WeChat conversation with Lu Yanjing. Yunyan, Jianan is just trying to spite her husband and seeking validation from you. She's a full-time housewife. What does she know about movies? If you really care about old times, you shouldn't indulge her nonsense. Everyone in the city knows she's madly in love with Shen Heji. Scrolling up, there was a video of more than a minute, under home surveillance. Shen Heji and I were having a candlelit dinner, gazing deeply into each other's eyes. Then I leaned on him, and he helped me into the room. I scoffed coldly and handed the phone back to Fu Yunyan. Then I called the doctor and explained the situation. Bastard, Fu Yunyan cursed, hands on his hips, after the doctor left. Ning Ning, they can forget about this money. It's absolutely outrageous to think you have no one to support you, he said as I fought back tears. No. I'll make them lose convincingly. Fu Yunyan looked at me, puzzled. My best friend Shin Han was on her way, bringing the anime movie sponsorship proposal we had worked on overnight. Shen Heji was right about one thing. Fu Yunyan's investment in Lu Yanjing was a business move, aimed at making money. How could I, then, rely solely on the fragile bonds of our youth to influence him? In this life, I might divorce, but my career will certainly flourish. In my past life, because of Shen Heji's obsession with cleanliness, I gave up the art I had studied hard for 20 years to devote myself full-time to him and his son. At that time, Chen Han had invited me to be the art director for her traditional Chinese-style animated movie. Considering Shen Rujing's busy school schedule and his inability to get along with the nanny, I had declined the opportunity. Now, I aim not only to be an art director but also a producer. Thus, regardless of Lu Yanjing's involvement, I am determined to secure Fu Yunyan's investment. The next day at the business cocktail party, Shen Heji and some industry bigwigs he had invited were persuading Fu Yunyan to continue investing in the movie Cui Qing. The director of Cui Qing was also present. I'm sorry, Director Zhou, but I've decided to invest in Director Chen's movie Neza instead. Which Director Chen? The crowd looked at each other in confusion. Chen Han and I entered, smiling. After a brief introduction, everyone received a copy of the movie sponsorship proposal. After looking it over, several were genuinely interested. Naturally, Chen Han's movie had been a dark horse in her previous life, and now with my rebirth enhancing it, anyone with a slight understanding of movies would know it's a good investment. Thus, no one mentioned Lu Yanjing again. Feeling neglected for the first time, her eyes immediately reddened. Jianan, let it be enough, to spite him. You've dragged so many people into your act, it's too reckless. I'm afraid you won't be able to end this smoothly. Shen Heji furrowed his brows and rebuked me in front of so many people. Then he turned to look at Fu Yunyan. Speaking earnestly, he said, President Fu, as Yanjing's boyfriend, you should know how important the movie siege is to her. I promise to handle things with Jianan properly and ensure she won't be wronged. I didn't respond. Chen Han simply rolled his eyes in frustration. Shen Heji, Ning Ning has only been married to you for 6 years. Have you truly forgotten how profound her artistic achievements are? Fu Yuyan's expression darkened as he spoke bluntly. Jianan isn't causing trouble. It's you who should go back to academia. You don't understand the film industry. Ignoring Shen Heji's displeased expression, he pointed at Lu Yanjing. Moreover, let me clarify one thing. My relationship with Miss Lu is purely professional. Professor Shen, you'd better understand your position before you speak. Lu Yanjing, who had been forcing a smile, could no longer hold it in. She set down her glass and quickly left the event. Overnight, she lost not only a major transformative production but also a powerful financial backer. And I haven't even played my trump card yet. Uncertain whether he was embarrassed or pained by Lu Yanjing's situation, Shen Heji hesitated for a moment before hurrying after her. The crowd looked at me with sympathy. I just smiled. I didn't take it to heart. On the day the paternity test results came out, Shen Heji returned home drunk. Professor Shen, who usually avoided socializing and despised the pursuit of fame, had set aside all his pride for the woman he loved. Yet, he remained cold and aloof before me all his life. Staring at the report indicating a 99% probability of a biological father-son relationship, my heart still ached. I knew, it wasn't that I still harbored fantasies about Shen Heji, rather, I couldn't bear to admit that my life, in essence, had been worthless. The truth was brief, but to me, it represented over 40 years of enduring tough days and nights, of relentless hopes and fantasies, still gnawing at my nerves. As I opened the paternity report, I still fantasized. Could it be that Shen Rujing was only Lu Yanjing's son, and the resemblance I saw as I neared death was merely a trick of my failing eyes? Now, utterly disillusioned, Shen Heji truly did not love me, not in the slightest. Throughout the long years, he never felt a man's instinct towards me. It would have been one thing if he had remained chaste, but he was indeed Shen Rujing's father. This realization trampled all my dignity as a woman into the mud. A surge of hatred welled up inside me, and I bit my lip until it bled. Shenheji, I've decided, I want not just a divorce but also to leave you to them. I suddenly spoke out in the dark dining room. Shenheji looked at me in shock and turned on the light. Why should I patch up your filthy, broken world? This is something you three should face together, I said emotionlessly. Shenheji's face turned pale, his eyes clearing from their haze. He approached, his hands trembling as he picked up the report. After a long while, he lowered it slowly, his voice hoarse. Ning Ning, you know. Yes, I know. Nearly a minute of silence. He knelt before me, choking back tears. He recounted his past with Lu Yanjing to me. Back then, he was just a poor college student, unapproved by Lu's parents. The night they broke up, they impulsively slept together after drinking, due to lack of experience. It was 3 months before Lu Yanjing realized she was pregnant. She had to drop out of school and gave birth to Shen Rujing. Ning Ning, it's my fault, I ruined her life. Shenheji gripped my hand tightly. I only feel guilt towards her, believe me. As for that matter, it's not what you think. I wanted to remain pure for her. Seeing my disbelief, he stood up, pulled me into his study, and took out a psychological report. After that incident, I've been seeing a psychologist. I can't get over it myself. I hate that I couldn't control myself. Ning Ning. Give me some time. Struggle flashed in his eyes as he looked at me painfully. If you mind Rujing, I will send him away and make sure you never see him again. Ning Ning, can we not divorce? My situation is only temporary. I didn't believe a word he said. Shenheji's greatest achievement wasn't in finance, it was in PUA, being a master manipulator, unrivaled by anyone. In my past life, a single sentence. Whether or not that happened, it won't affect my love for you. Had me willingly widow myself for him for a lifetime. Now, another line. I only feel guilt towards her. I want to make it work with you, trying to elicit my sympathy again, as if such good fortune existed. I coldly withdrew my hand. Professor Shen, I'm giving you 3 days to finalize our divorce, otherwise, I will immediately release this paternity test report. During those 3 days, I threw myself into work, cutting off all external information. Chen Han told me that Shenheji spent every day outside my studio, even squatting in the parking lot just to see me. On the last day, he brought Shen Rujing to plead with me. Rujing called out for Mom, his voice hoarse from crying. My heart was as hard as stone, unmoved. Chen Han was moved to tears and locked herself in her office to cry bitterly. For 6 years, I treated Shen Rujing like a precious jewel. He even recognized her as his godmother. She couldn't bear to be apart from her godson. Yet I, his real mother, was able to harden my heart. Now, I know you really want to divorce and start a new career. I took a sip of the cold coffee, bitter to the core. Chen Han doesn't understand. When I'm old, frail, and ill, placing all my hopes on him, his cold words would then say, Dad and Aunt Lu are at this age, wanting to spend their last moments with the one they love. Let them settle this regret. After all, they lost a lifetime because of you. No one knew how desperate and chilled I was at that time. Everyone in the world could misunderstand me, even curse me, and I wouldn't blame them. But Shen Rujing, I cannot forgive. It was him who made me end up truly alone in the final chapter of my life, living as a complete and utter pitiful soul. When the time came, I duly arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Shenheji looked much paler and thinner, his lips covered in white dead skin. Dark circles under his eyes like someone who had been ill for a long time. He looked as if a gust of wind could knock him over. Jianan, do we really have to end up like this? He asked. I pursed my lips and looked into the distance. He seemed to want to say more, but finally he just said, It's right for you to cut your losses. I'm really not sure about my illness. I shouldn't hold you back. The staff member asked him. Have you made up your mind? A flash of reluctance crossed his eyes. Then he silently nodded. The stamp fell, permanently ending the twisted fate between us. Whether he truly didn't want to divorce or was afraid I'd reveal Shen Rujing's origins, I no longer wanted to pursue it. Leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Fu Yuxing's sports car was parked across the street. Before parting, Shenheji spoke his final words to me. He said, Lu Yanjing was just a youthful impulse, a thing of the past. From now on, he would take good care of Shen Rujing and have no further involvement with her. His sincere and firm demeanor seemed entirely different from the 80-year-old Shenheji. 6 months later, the film was released and achieved great success. At the celebration party, Fu Yuxing hugged me excitedly and spun me around a few times. Ning Ning, welcome back. This is the real you. I knew you would succeed. I screamed, dizzy and overwhelmed, pounding on him. Put me down. Haven't you made a fortune too? Jianan teased him, suggesting that with a successful investment, he should perhaps return to Australia, as a hefty dividend was inevitable. During those 6 months, as long as I worked late in the studio, he was there with me, even moving his office over. The staff joked about never seeing such a dedicated investor. They even whispered that the Fu family might be bankrupt, relying on this investment for a comeback. When he heard this, he'd laugh and reply, I can't face my parents until I've won my wife over. Yet, in those 6 months in the glitzy entertainment industry, he was completely scandal-free. Eventually, everyone realized his target had always been me. From being indifferent at first, I moved to disbelief. I hadn't expected that a small love letter from our youth would turn into his fervent pursuit so many years later. When Jianan privately asked if I would accept him, I subconsciously countered, does someone really love me? She paused, laughed, and tapped my forehead. My big producer, you're now worth billions. Are you kidding me? Then it dawned on me. Oh, here I am at 27, still harboring dreams and pursuits of love, full of vigor, believing in the echo of constant thoughts, not like in my past life, where after over 40 years in a loveless desert, I believed I wasn't good enough to be loved, aimlessly toiling away my life. An elderly lady ended up with nothing, so I told Fu Yunyan that it might take a long time for me to believe that he loves me. He said it was okay, he would wait. One day, Jianan rushed into my office with a wedding invitation in hand. It's strange, Shen Heji is actually going to marry Lu Yanjing. This is so unlike his previous behavior, he said. Something's off. He hasn't stopped trying to win you back these past few months. Why would he do something that's like digging his own grave? I glanced at the wedding invitation and was drawn to the handwritten signature of the groom. I abruptly stood up. A ridiculous thought crossed my mind. Shen Heji had also been reborn, only I knew that the way these 3 characters were written was his new signature, designed specially for him after his 50th birthday, which he used until he was 80. On the day of the wedding, I secretly went to the banquet wearing a mask. Soon after Lu Yanjing was announced as the new female lead in the movie Prompting the City, she issued a statement retiring from the industry. It was a high-profile move, and her fans proudly claimed that she was going back to take over her family's business, as she no longer cared for the entertainment industry. Regardless, it was a graceful exit. The Lu family's business had been declining, and it wasn't long before Lu Yanjing was busy attending matchmaking events. Though the candidates her father introduced were of questionable quality, which greatly dissatisfied her, the media often captured her leaving these meetings with a frown and in a huff, so before long, she went back to Shen Heji. Now, Shen Heji, as a renowned university professor with impressive academic achievements, was highly sought after following his divorce. For some reason, however, the two of them made no progress. When asked about his romantic life, Shen Heji always openly stated he had no intention of remarrying. During the toast at the wedding, I saw Shen Heji instinctively reach for his cane as he turned around, and I knew I was right. Some habits, etched deep in the bones, don't change overnight. Our eyes met. We recognized each other instantly. Outside the hotel in the parking lot, he stopped me. Regardless, Jianan, thank you for letting things go, he said. His eyes were indifferent, emotionless. Certainly not the Shen Heji who had been unable to let go at the time of their divorce. I responded with a light smile. No need, it was about time. He nodded, somewhat emotionally. Seeing your achievements today makes me happy for you. Thank you, I said. Then, we fell silent. That was normal. After all, that's how we had spent the past several years. As we were about to part, he suddenly mentioned that he didn't understand why his younger self had rejected Lu Yanjing. Marrying his first love should have been a regret he was eager to rectify. He still keeps your studio, all the things you left at home. Lu Jing told me that he accidentally damaged one of your paintings and got a severe scolding from him. Old Shen Heji looked confused. Jianan, I fell ill when I was 55, and the psychologist said I had forgotten many things. I wonder if it's related to this, I asked in surprise. You were sick, he nodded thoughtfully. Oh. I've been seeing a psychologist without your knowledge. So, did he change his signature not to change his style, but because of his amnesia? Fu Yuyan saw that I hadn't replied for a long time and came looking for me, running into Shen Heji. Professor Shen, congratulations on your marriage. He casually put his arm around my shoulder, his congratulations lacking sincerity. Shen Heji wasn't upset. He nodded and turned to leave. Even as he disappeared from sight, I watched his receding figure. Jealous, Fu Yuyan took my hand and we walked back, sourly remarking, "What's so good about that old scholar? He looks like he's aging prematurely, all dull and lifeless." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He continued seriously, "Don't doubt it, people like him might go bald in their early 40s, don't be fooled by his refined appearance now. Once he puts on weight, he'll be greasier than anyone." He thumped his robust chest. "Like me. I love to work out, don't dwell on things. I guarantee even at 80 I'll still make your heart flutter." His words made me laugh so hard I almost fell over. A thought crossed my mind. It seems that Shen Heji really did suffer from dementia in his old age. A year later, I also went with Fu Yuyan to Australia to meet his parents. "You're really heartless, cutting off contact just like that. Even though you're married, we're still your family." Auntie Fu hugged me and wept. Once back at home, with his family's support, Fu Yuyan no longer maintained the humble demeanor he had when pursuing me in China. That's right, this time returning to China, she was smart enough to contact me first to vent her anger. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't have bothered with her. "As if I don't have my own temper," he said proudly. Auntie Fu, trying to hold back laughter and tears, explained to me, "Don't believe him, he actually came back to see how you were doing." "And what if I was doing well?" I asked. Fu Yuyan's expression darkened. He gritted his teeth. "Knowing that you avoid me like a plague, if you were doing well, I definitely wouldn't appear before you and bother you." I watched him quietly until my eyes were red, unable to hold back any longer. He came over in a fluster trying to console me. "It's my fault, I shouldn't have said that, I deserve to be punished." With a cry, I threw myself into his arms, sobbing heavily. In my past life, he must have come to see me too, seeing how I loved Shen Heji madly, devoted myself entirely to family and our son, and gave up my own painting and future prospects willingly. So, he silently returned to Australia, cooperating with me, not disturbing me. After confirming my relationship with Fu Yuyan, I returned to the country. Jianan was planning a new movie, and I needed to go back to help her with the preparatory work. After the meeting, we had a moment to relax and drank a cup of coffee. She told me that during the months I was in Australia, Shen Heji and Lu Yanqing's married life was chaotic. She reveled in the drama. That child, Lu Yanqing, we all know how difficult he is to manage. Lu Yanqing is another high-maintenance lady who doesn't lift a finger at home. I can almost picture it. Shen Rujing, finicky and obsessive about cleanliness, dislikes having strangers at home. Lu Yanqing, proud like a little princess, doesn't bother with household chores. Shen Heji, engrossed in his research, loves silence, and expects to be waited on hand and foot. What kind of life does this family of three lead? Jianan chuckled as he pounded the table. You wouldn't believe it, but now everyone at University A, both faculty and students, knows Shen Heji isn't up to mark. Lu Yanqing ended up a widow right after getting married and is furious. She didn't even bother to save face for him. Shen Heji, once placed on a high pedestal, has been hilariously knocked down. I just smiled faintly at this. Jianan also mentioned that during their arguments, Shen Heji would sigh, saying that Lu Yanqing couldn't compare to me. Unconvinced, Lu Yanqing methodically listed my dozens of virtues, leaving Lu Yanqing so angry she didn't return home for half a month. Now everyone is guessing when these two will finally divorce. Meanwhile, a certain man, overwhelmed with official duties abroad, overjoyed to hear about Shen Heji's inadequacies, hurriedly called me to confirm the news. I simply ignored him. After the movie wrapped up, Lu Yanqing found me, her former glory gone. She slumped down and threw a divorce certificate at me. Jianan, did you do this on purpose, raising those two to be so critical? Were you trying to get back at me? I stirred my coffee gently. I've taken such good care of your son, and this is your attitude. She was taken aback. You're so dedicated, why not just live well with them? Why come and disrupt my life? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in this situation. Do you love Shen Heji? I asked. She replied irritably, I love Fu Yuyan. Shen Heji and I were never meant to be. I understood, whether to love or not, for her and Shen Heji, was a choice of convenience at the moment. They are both selfish, loving only themselves. If they loved each other, why could they endure half a century without contact, without missing each other, and peacefully live their own married lives? If they didn't love each other, why did they immediately reunite like passionate lovers as soon as their respective spouses passed away, as if they couldn't bear to be apart even in death? Now I understand. For decades, they stayed out of each other's lives because each had someone else to share their burdens. They couldn't give up the benefits and convenience. Their reunion and continuation of their past relationship was merely due to loneliness. Lacking companionship, in the absence of better options, they were the best choice for each other. For the elderly Shin Hezi, being reborn allowed him to marry his first love in his youth, but in the end, it's me, the wife he betrayed, whom he can't seem to forget. Shin Hezi fell ill, insisting I visit him. Jianan, I'm on my way out. He struggled to open his eyes and reached out to me tremblingly. I sat by his bed, quietly watching him. I remember. Didn't I promise you that apart from that one thing, I would give you the greatest honor a wife could have, that in this life, I would only ever be with you, I will never betray you. Yes, you've said that before. I didn't shy away. His eyes saddened as he spoke, but I forgot. I found another woman, and I got married again, so, this must be my punishment. I didn't respond, and he slowly closed his eyes, succumbing to a feverish delirium. I knew then that the older Shin Hezi had passed away. He couldn't merge with his younger self. He had a successful life, both in family and career, yet he always dwelled on the first love he had hurt, Lu Yanjing. He had the chance to go back to his youth and rectify his regrets, but he discovered that the so-called perfect mending was uglier and more unbearable than the regret itself. He couldn't accept this reality, or perhaps he was too ashamed to face me again. For all these reasons, I no longer cared. When Shin Hezi awoke again, he looked at me intently like a lost child, his eyes rimming red. It seemed he realized that he had returned. He suddenly grabbed my hand, urgently saying, Ningning, I'm not him. I love you. I never thought of betraying you. He spoke incoherently. You were too good to that old man. You pampered him too much. He never experienced the pain of losing you. I'm not him. I love you. After everything, I clearly know that I love you. Give me a chance. I will change. I pulled away my hand and shook my head. Shin Hezi, this is you. You can't change. Your personality prevents you from recognizing and seizing what is beautiful. You see others' love as a sign of weakness. So, when he was successful, he looked down on me, ignored me, acting high and mighty, as if he were my deity. But when I truly left, you became afraid, so, he belittled me, and now he's groveling. In his previous life, did he really win? Now I know, he did not. His best years were not spent with the one he loved. He could have had a passionate and vibrant life with me, but he failed to seize it. Instead, we wasted our lives on each other. I am at peace now. For such a Shin Hezi, no matter who he marries, it's a waste. No matter how many times he is reborn, he is destined to miss out on happiness. And I, with a clear conscience, still have a bright and splendid future. To the old Mrs. Jianan of the past life, I want to make peace, and then say goodbye. Leaving the hospital, I took out my phone and dialed, Fu Yunian, I miss you. I can't wait to start my new life. Story 2. On the day I married Shinbai, his first love committed suicide by jumping off a building. On our wedding night, my husband held the body of that woman and wept until his voice was hoarse. He said, Ying, if it weren't for your relentless pressure, how could she have died? Afterward, on every anniversary of our marriage, he would dress in a black suit and visit her grave. He killed my cat and forced me to have an abortion. He said, Furong is dead. How can you smile so happily? You must live the rest of your life in repentance. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my college days, before Furong had died, and before I had married him. There was still time. This time, I would let him and Furong be together, inseparably locked forever. In May, the air, no longer mild with spring, carried a hint of scorching heat. The sun shone brilliantly. I watched Shinbai running around the basketball court, sweating profusely. It was only after the game ended that I realized I had been reborn, back in my college days. Next would be the classic scene where Furong brings Shinbai water, but this time, I smashed her water bottle. My thoughts echoed slowly in my mind. In my previous life, just as Shinbai was finishing his game, I excitedly ran to the supermarket to buy his favorite drink and water for his teammates. After paying, I realized that Furong, who had planned to come with me, was nowhere to be found. I didn't think much of it, assuming she was busy with something. I sent her a message and then carried the heavy mineral water towards the basketball court. As I approached, I could hear the cheers. I quickened my pace, but when I reached the court, I saw everyone surrounding Shinbai. In his hand, he held a cup adorned with Peppa Pig. It was unmistakably Furong's cup, and there he was, unabashedly opening it and taking a drink. Shinbai and I grew up together, and since we were little, our elders joked about betrothing us. From the age of 7 or 8, he liked to call me little wife, always making me blush, so I knew Shinbai was a germaphobe. We often studied together in high school, and once I accidentally drank from his cup. Although he didn't say anything, his normally calm brow was deeply furrowed. Later, I saw the cup I drank from discarded in the trash. Since then, I knew he had a strong aversion to germs, just like his mother. Seeing Shinbai drink from Furong's cup made me realize they had been hiding a deeper connection from me. Had they exchanged bodily fluids? Was that why he no longer physically recoiled from her? In an instant, I felt nauseated. Meanwhile, I also remembered, I'm not sure when it started, but Shinbai always includes a mango-flavored milk tea whenever he buys some for me. I'm allergic to mangoes, and Mu Furong likes mango flavor. Whenever he gives me a gift, Mu Furong inevitably receives the same. In a past life, I raised the issue, but he just smiled and said, "Ying, she's your best friend and she's not well treated at home. If we don't treat her well, who will?" It seemed reasonable. In my past life, my thinking was simple, never questioning deeper motives. Even before this basketball game, it never crossed my mind that Shinbai might like Mu Furong. After all, he had promised me early on that he would marry no one but me. Too, in kindergarten, he always saved his share of candies for me. In elementary school, if other kids pulled my hair, he would pull me behind him and fight them, 1 against 5, covered in bruises. He would say that he was a man and it was his duty to protect me. During our middle school years, amidst the throes of young love, while other students avoided relationships, fearing a bad reputation for puppy love, he would buy me soda, catch cicadas for me, and pick flowers. He once told me privately, "Ying, we are meant to be together, so it's okay for us to be closer than others at this time." I laughed, feeling a bashful flutter in my heart, my smile sweet and tender. In high school, amidst the rigors of academia, we became the brightest spots in each other's lives. To be with him, I gave up my strengths and chose science, pushing myself to the limit with endless studying. My efforts paid off, and we ended up at the same university. From then on, we were inseparable, the envy of others. So, in a past life, when I discovered his secret dealings with Mu Furong, I couldn't hold back. I rushed forward and smashed Mu Furong's water cup to the ground. He froze for a moment, probably feeling that I had embarrassed him in front of everyone. He shoved me hard. By a twist of fate, I stumbled backwards, tripped over a rock and fell, sprawling ungainly on the ground. It was quite undignified. The surrounding students mocked me loudly. He acted as if he hadn't seen me fall. Bending down to pick up the pink water cup, I landed hard on the concrete, the pain bringing tears to my eyes. Struggling to get up, I noticed blood on my palm from scraping it on the ground. Beside me, Mu Furong, seeing me rise, quickly started with a plaintive tone, "Ying, don't be mad. I just saw that big brother Shen was sweating a lot under the sun, and I was worried he might get dehydrated." Her voice trailed off as she looked down, twisting her fingers. Tears streaked down her pale face, truly a sight that evoked pity. As she spoke, she reached out to pull me in. I shrugged off her hand, and she hurriedly retreated to Shinbai's side. "Big brother Shen, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have offered you my water bottle. I saw you sweating a lot. I'm sorry." She continued to apologize. "Please don't be angry with Sister Ying. It's all my fault. I didn't think it through." Shinbai remained cold-faced, relentlessly insisting that I apologize to Mu Furong, accusing me of being unreasonable. He even questioned me. "What's wrong with taking a sip from someone else's water bottle? Do you want me to die of thirst?" "Ying, I really didn't know you were so petty. Furong is your friend. Your best friend. Can't you be more accommodating? When we get married in the future, will you be intolerant even of a female mosquito near me?" His buddies laughed exaggeratedly at this. Someone even joked that my jealousy stemmed from my deep care for Shinbai. "Lucky you, brother Shen." Everyone was teasing and making a fuss. That day, I turned and walked away, crying all afternoon. Later, he came to coax me, his eyes reddening as he saw the injury on my hand. "Ying, I'm sorry, I had just come off the basketball court and was really thirsty." When I saw her offering the water, I couldn't help myself. "I didn't realize how much it mattered to you. It's all my fault. But Furong is your best friend. You guys share a dorm room. I only see her as a little sister, nothing more. I was worried you might accidentally trigger her condition. I got a bit anxious and pushed you. Please don't be mad." That evening, he took me out for dinner and bought me gifts, looking at me with eyes as tender as one would look at a beloved dog. "Yes, Mu Furong has depression. She said she felt suffocated at home, that whatever she did was wrong. She comes from a family that greatly favors males over females, where her brother is treated like a king. And even her grandmother won't let her sit at the table to eat. she could only eat what her brother left behind. Mu Furong told us, I really can't stand my brother, he spits in the food while eating, and I can only eat what he leaves behind. If I don't eat, I go hungry, I feel nauseous with every bite. At that time, everyone in our dorm felt sympathetic and comforted her, considering her depression. We all tended to give in to her. 3. Hey, aren't you going to buy some water? Mu Furong's voice brought me back to the present. In a past life, she used the excuse of me going to buy water to hurriedly bring water to Shinbai, blatantly challenging me. I glanced at the Peppa Pig water bottle she hugged in her arms and said with a smile, why buy water when you've already brought some? It must have been my meaningful smile that, for a moment, left her somewhat flustered. I stood up and ran towards the school's convenience store. Perhaps Mu Furong thought I was going to buy water. Yes, I did go to buy water, but I only bought one bottle. Twisting off the cap, I gulped down several mouthfuls. Under the blazing sun, I felt like I was turning into dried salted fish, and I didn't even like basketball. Well, apart from the earth, I'm not really into any other ball games. I took out my phone and called my mom. After exchanging a few pleasantries, I got to the main topic. Mom, let me tell you a secret. Shinbai is dating someone now, ha ha ha, I said cheerfully over the phone. On the other end, my mom was clearly taken aback. After a pause, she asked me, Ying, what's going on? Aren't you and Shinbai in a relationship? Mom, how could you misunderstand? I hurriedly explained, Shinbai and I just grew up together. If you must blame someone, blame yourselves for always teasing us since we were kids, but really, all there is between him and me is that we grew up together. Perhaps a bit closer than others. Mom, think about it, we grew up peeing and playing in the mud together, how could we possibly date? I deliberately laughed lightheartedly and added, let me tell you, the aloof, handsome guy at our school is really good looking. I'll try my best to win him over. Oh, but let's not talk about me, let's talk about Shinbai. My mom was clearly confused and after a long while, she finally said, alright, let's talk about Shinbai, what's going on with him? Is he really dating someone? Yes, he is even sharing a water cup with a girl, but that's not the point. The main thing is, he managed to get a girlfriend and didn't even treat us to a meal. Can you believe that? My mom, speaking earnestly, said, that's too much. Then, she asked about the aloof, handsome guy at school. I told her I was working on it. After chatting for over 10 minutes, just as I was about to hang up, my mom suddenly asked me, Ying, give me a straight answer. You and Shinbai, are you really not dating? Mom, it could be anyone but him, I said decisively. On the other end, my mom seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. I too, exhaled deeply as I hung up the phone. In my previous life, I was naive and unaware of our family business matters, but in this life, I know it's a critical point. The Shin family is facing major financial issues and is seeking financing. If the financing fails, the Shin family will face the risk of bankruptcy. In my previous life, my family invested in theirs because Uncle Shin told my mom, your Ying's heart is entirely with my boy, and sooner or later, we will be one family. In this life, I made it clear to my mom that I do not love Shinbai. We will not get involved with the Shin family's business. Letting go of Shinbai feels really good. When you no longer love someone, that sense of relief and joy truly promotes mental and physical health. In my previous life, I suffered from depression under Shinbai's emotional abuse, eventually succumbing to breast cancer. In this life, for the sake of my own health, I should love myself a bit more. I was drinking a beverage as I walked to the court and, sure enough, there was Shinbai, tilting his head back, drinking from a Peppa Pig cup, gulping loudly in the sun as his Adam's apple bobbed. Seeing me, he hurriedly stopped drinking and walked over. Ying, where have you been? He asked with a smile. By the way, did you buy water for our teammates? I shrugged and smiled. Not yet, the supermarket is just over there, only a few steps away. While talking, my gaze fell on the water cup in his hand. He seemed to notice something and hastily handed the cup to Mu Furong. Mu Furong took the cup, a barely noticeable look of disappointment in her eyes. Then she spoke softly, Ying, I think Shinbai was just too thirsty, so I let him use my cup for a bit. Don't get the wrong idea. I pretended to be confused. What wrong idea? Oh, I asked with a grin. Furong, you wouldn't happen to like Shinbai, do you? Mu Furong's face turned pale, and she fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. A flash of panic also crossed Shinbai's eyes. I covered my mouth, chuckling. What's this? College is a paradise for romance. Furong, if you like Shinbai, just admit it. Are you afraid of treating us to a meal to make it official? Shinbai suddenly snapped. Enough. Ying, there's a limit to joking, I sneered. Thinking to myself about their deceit, Shenbai and his team won the game, and they had a barbecue dinner that night. He invited me, but I didn't go. Mu Furong went. She came back late, her face flushed from drinking, incessantly talking about Shenbai. I pretended not to hear. Before I knew it, it was the beginning of the month, and it was just me and Mu Furong in the dorm. She suddenly asked me, Ying,